short one. Angie is not here yet.
Didn't she say she was going to be on the PCT and she was not going to make this meeting?
Oh, that's right. That's right. My mistake. Okay.
All right. Well,
We're all here.
and we're live and recording.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to the July 26, 2023 regular hybrid planning commission meeting. I'm Mike Murphy, the chair. Tonight's hybrid planning commission meeting is being brought to you courtesy of Zoom. Welcome to you all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please have your microphones turned on for the roll call. And Adam, if you would call the roll for us tonight.
Sure. Commissioner Accuse.
Here.
Commissioner Battazo. Commissioner Boatsman.
Here.
Commissioner Gels.
Here.
Commissioner Rashish.
Here.
Vice Chair Raghead.
Here.
And Chair Murphy.
Here. A quorum is present, and let the record show that Commissioner Battazo previously requested an excused absence, and she is not with us tonight. For this meeting, we continue to utilize the Zoom platform, and I will do my best to recognize you in the order in which your virtual hands are raised. After being recognized, you may then ask your question or make comments. Our first order of business is public appearances. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the commission about issues of concern. Adam, is there anyone who has signed up for appearances that wishes to address the commission?
No one signed up. No.
Okay. So given that there are no appearances, we now move to regular business. The first item of regular business is to review and consider the June 28 and regular meeting minutes. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the June 28 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Victor, seconded by Carolyn. Adam, do you want to call the roll?
Yeah. Commissioner Accuse.
Aye.
Commissioner Battazo's absence. Commissioner Boatsman.
Aye.
Commissioner Gels.
Aye.
Commissioner Rashish.
Aye.
Vice Chair Raghead.
Aye.
And Chair Murphy.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Our second item of regular business is the Planning Commission bylaws review. And is Allison going to join us tonight, Adam, or are you filling in for her too?
The city clerk, Andrea Larson, will take the presentation here.
Great. Andrea, take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commission. For the record, I'm City Clerk Andrea Larson. I don't have a PowerPoint for you this evening, but just a few points that I wanted to touch on because the presentation was virtually going to be the same what Allison and Deb presented to you in June. Before you tonight is an update of the bylaws. This update to the bylaws came about since I was appointed to city clerk's office. One of my goals was to bring some consistency to all boards and commissions bylaws so that any commissioner on any of our boards and commissions are functioning from a similar set of rules that govern their board or commission. They all have some slight differences because each board's business is slightly different, but overall we're looking to gain consistency between the boards and commissions, consistency with state law, and consistency with the city code and city council rules of procedure. As we started to work through incorporating these things, what we thought could be an easy rewrite, a few edits to bring these things kind of ended up turning into a complete rewrite of the Planning Commission They did increase quite a bit in length from the previous bylaws. But we felt that that was necessary so that we could help you guys include some more governing things to have for the boards and commissions to utilize. We also wanted to address legislative changes that have happened since last changes. There were legislative changes to the Open Publics Meeting Act that required any meeting that has action being taken has a chance for the public to speak. And there is also a requirement that we have to provide a physical location for the public to watch the meeting from. So both of those have been incorporated into the bylaws. We also just added some procedural changes that address required trainings, election of officers, how agendas are prepared, and kind of planning commission procedures. And then also included in the rules in the bylaws that are consistent with the City Council rules of procedure are some parliamentary rules and motions, Planning Commission Code of Conduct, Planning Commission staff communication guidelines, and how does the city use Nextdoor. That's the how and the why we got here. Do you guys have any questions? These similar bylaws are being presented to the other boards and commissions throughout their September and October meetings.
Carolyn,
Yes, I have some, these bylaws look like a great improvement. They look very helpful. So I have some comments and questions, and maybe others have comments and questions too. And I wondered if we could get it up on the screen and maybe look at it page by page.
Yep, give me just 1 second. Where is screen share? Every program's different. And what was your question, Carolyn?
Okay, so on the first page, number 1.2. Okay, yeah, right there. It refers to quasi judicial matters. If you click on that 1915-010, it refers to our work with quasi judicial matters, and I thought I understood that we had been removed from that role a few years ago. So
There aren't any current quasi judicial matters that are before within the purview of the Planning Commission. You are correct. Because that holdover is still in the code. Our city legal team advised still, we would have to make an amendment to the code to take that out of there.
okay, so it's not a problem for us that it mentions us doing that kind of work when we don't do it.
That is correct.
Okay, and then also in 1.2, it says that we are the designated planning agency for the city. I kind of wondered about that because I didn't think about ourselves as an agency. So I wondered about that. There are a lot of people out there in the citizens that think that the Planning Commission is an agency and makes decisions about property permits and so on. But so what does that mean? Planning agency?
That would be a great question to email in to our city attorney, B.O. Park, or assistant city attorney, Eileen Kiefer. It's an RCW reference that they suggested that we have in there.
Well, okay. I mean, if it's not of concern to all of you, I guess I'm not that concerned. I don't want to hold up business on this tonight. Maybe 2.5, I don't know if 2.5 is on the same page, but maybe other people have questions about the first page there.
Section 1 and Section 2 are almost all direct copy and paste directly from the Mercer Island City Code.
Okay. Okay, well, part 2.5. I just want to point out a typo in there for you. Let's see.
Scrivener's errors and typos will be picked up as.
Okay, all right. You're missing the word training in B. Receive training, I think, is what you want to say there. I don't know if that'll come up or not when you're looking. I see other people have their hands up. Are you guys on the same page, or should I finish with my comments and questions? What do you think, Michael?
Well, I think if someone has a comment on pages 1, 2, or 3, 4, and 5 here, let's chime in and go through the document one time. Go ahead, Adam.
So I had a quick clarification that I would recommend adding to 2.4. Hopefully this is something we never use, but in the previous bylaws, it clarified that, that removal would be, after public hearing. So I see the language for concurrence of the city council, but no language for public hearing. So my recommendation would be, let's clarify that would be a public hearing of the city, run by, city council. That was the only comment I had on this part.
I certainly agree with that. So anyway, maybe that's an amendment later. Okay.
Victor, do you have something on 2.4, 2.5?
Just a quick note, the removal is a direct copy and paste from the city code.
I do. And this is more of a question for Chair Murphy. I think in the previous meeting or in one of the meetings where we've discussed this, you had some proposed changes around conflict of interest. And I know that 2.5 has a code of ethics, and it just says that we have to go through ethics training, but it doesn't specifically talk about conflicts of interest. Am I remembering that conversation correctly?
Yeah, you are remembering it correctly. I believe what is picked up there in 2.5A is that the code section being referenced, MICC 2.60, is our local code that defines conflicts, as well as chapter 42.23 of the RCW.
But this appears in the training section, and it just simply says we have to attend the training. It doesn't say anything about being bound to the code of ethics, unless I missed it somewhere else.
I think it says somewhere further down, but I actually have a question along these lines when we get further down.
Also, 2.4 references removal for conflict of interest. I don't know if that's good enough.
But it actually doesn't define what that is, does it?
It doesn't. No, absolutely. Yeah. It could be better.
Yeah, I think there and further down, I have the same question, that they don't define that. It's all by implication from 2.5.
In regards to whether a hearing is required for a planning commissioner to be dismissed, I think that is mentioned in some part of this packet, if not this first rule, maybe later in one of the appendices. So as we go down, let's look for it.
An
So
easy
Andrea,
fix.
I have a question on 2.5B. It requires training, and I'm assuming based on past experience that that's training that you guys coordinate and schedule.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is training that is coordinated through the city's clerk's office.
Yeah, and you're not relying on us through this document to schedule our own training for that?
No.
No, okay,
It's just stating that it is a requirement.
yeah, okay. Okay, any other comments? Chris, go ahead.
So yeah, no, I think like an easy fix would be in 2.5A to simply have a lead sentence that says, all board and commission members are bound by the code of ethics and they will get training as provided by the city attorney's office. I mean, it seems like at the point that it doesn't, nothing says specifically that we're bound, it seems like it might be worth adding.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And maybe the section heading in 2.5 could be something.
I believe that the bound to the code of ethics is addressed later in the rules of procedure. And this one really was to address just training requirements.
Okay, we'll look for that. Any comments on the next section 3? Chris, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Old hand, sorry.
Okay. So Andrea, in 3.1C on the process for nominating the chair, that looks a little different from what we did the last several years. Is this a change?
So 3.1C would only apply if there's only one nomination for chair.
Okay, which is that the same procedure that we've used? I don't remember us doing it that way.
So it's basically saying it's the same procedure that you have done, but if there's only one nomination for chair, instead of having everybody do the vote, we'll do it just as one because there's not 2 nominations for chair.
Okay,
So it's just kind of condensing it instead of saying we need to work through all of them. They can cast a unanimous ballot because if that is the will of the commission.
yeah.
It may not be the will of the commission if some of the commissioners do not wish to vote, even though there's only one nomination for chair.
Okay, but this process calls for a second, whereas the process that we've used this year and the last 3 years.
Only for C and only if you're wishing to cast a unanimous ballot and skip the individual ballots.
And so it's not mandatory to pursue the unanimous ballot.
Correct.
Okay, got
So
it.
it's saying if you want to do a unanimous ballot, it has to be supported by more than one person, which is why it
Okay.
requires a second.
Okay,
And that's consistent with the procedure used to elect the mayor and the deputy mayor.
okay. Okay, any other comments on this page? Anything on the next page?
I have a question or comment about something in section 4.
Okay,
I was looking for something in the meeting guidelines about commissioner wanting to raise a topic for the good of the order or wherever, and wondering where that fits in an agenda.
If you want to propose adding something to the agenda,
Well, I don't know, maybe it'd be considered that or not, but let's say a commissioner wants to suggest something about how we conduct our business for meetings, or wants to suggest something be added to a future agenda, or I don't know, could be anything. But right here, I don't see any place in the, I don't know, well, maybe it's further down here towards the very end of this section 4. I think there's a discussion of how the what the agenda looks like. Order of regular planning meeting agenda. Yeah, if you keep going a little bit further, you get to the end, there's just no place for people to bring up something that sometimes our chair does say that towards the end of our meetings. Do we have any suggestions for the good of the order? Okay, so this is a place where a commissioner could.
we can't speak about business that wasn't advertised on the agenda. We can make
Uh-huh.
proposals for future meetings, but we couldn't
Mhm.
hold discussion about it.
Okay, well, even that, there isn't a place to do that here.
It wasn't a topic that's typically on the planning commission agendas, so it wasn't one that would added. That would be a great question for Allison.
And the thing might have not something to do that is I mean, I don't know that it would require it to be on a public agenda, but it might just have to do how we're organizing our input, for example, how we're sharing our input, how, something like that. So I don't know if all of those things have to be on the agenda, but this is my question.
The commission always has the ability to discuss those things throughout the meeting. Discussing how you're going to discussion protocol isn't something that needs to be on the agenda, and the chair could choose to hold that discussion at any time.
Okay, that's good.
So Carolyn, I think
Yeah.
the intent of this process is that if someone wants something to be discussed, they should suggest that to staff to add to the agenda
Mhm,
for the meeting.
mhm.
And I believe there is a point that addresses that later in the bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty.
This is just kind of the structure of
Yeah,
the meeting.
yeah. Well, okay. I'm not sure it might be something missing, but let's keep looking and thinking about it.
Because about the closest you could get is if there are similar to city council, planning commission reports. But that would be reporting on planning commission business that the individual commissioners have been working on. It's not really necessarily a place for discussion.
Yeah. Mhm.
Chris,
Yeah, 5 is the section 5 is all about the agenda setting, and I don't think it completely is going to satisfy Carolyn because it is written in the passive voice, and it's not clear to me how topics are set, but it seems like that's where we should probably talk about it.
Yeah,
Yes.
I probably didn't see it there, so this what probably drew me back to the other. Mhm.
okay, any other comments on section 4 at all? Okay, moving into 5. Adam,
You're muted, Adam.
oh,
Okay, thanks. On 5.3, with dealing with City Hall's closure, this customer service counter, is that something is that still available to
There's
us? And if,
multiple customer service counters, which is why I went
Oh,
with that verbiage.
okay, okay. I was just
Couldn't hear what you
curious.
said, Andrea. What was your answer?
There are multiple customer service counters throughout the city.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
okay, any other comments on 5? Okay, let's move to section 6. Any comments on 6?
Yeah, I have some questions. This is a very interesting section here. 6.2C.
Carolyn, Adam had his hand up first and then Kate.
Oh, okay, I thought we were still just going spontaneous, but yes, okay.
Adam,
No worries. Just once on 6.3, I guess. So maybe it makes sense to discuss Commissioner Boatsman's first. Or should I just talk real to 6.3?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. On G, I know I've been guilty of this. Do not be repetitive in your arguments or discussions. Sometimes I don't know, maybe that's I would advocate perhaps we have softer language, like try to not be repetitive in your arguments or discussion. Sometimes I have to repeat things once, and maybe the next time it goes around, say the same thing worded slightly differently. So I would ask for a little leeway on 6.3G.
They're also just protocols, which are guidelines. That's something to keep
Oh,
in
okay.
mind here.
Okay,
Yeah, nobody gets punished
nada.
if they repeat
Okay.
something. Kate,
Hi, I was wondering if this is an appropriate or inappropriate place to talk about the docket and how we had a little bit of a foible last time with differences of opinion about whether we use the criteria the city council uses in the docketing process. And I noticed that's next up on the agenda is discussion of the docket. So I don't know, we talked about a potential need to get some clarity. Yeah, I guess it's a question to staff and I guess the chair and the vice chair. Should we clear that up before our next docketing process?
From the city clerk's office perspective, that would be a question for Deputy Director Van Gorp, who is unfortunately sick this evening.
Yeah, my recollection, Kate, is the way we left that was, yes, there was confusion. Yes, the code is not a model of clarity. And the chances of getting the city council to revise the code and in view of there was considerable difference of opinion within this body. And given the prospect of the bandwidth of staff and city council as far as revising the code to clarify that, we felt that was not or could be kind of a fool's errand. Even though I agree that there is a problem there. And so I'm not sure if we want to tackle that. Certainly it's not here. It really goes in the code section relating to, or code sections relating to that process.
Okay, so that I think that answers my question that this is not an appropriate place. I guess I go back to what Adam said about that G then, and I would say I almost want to make that stronger because I was certainly guilty of, and I think others were too, having a lot of really repetitive arguments. And I'm concerned that we really aren't using Robert's Rules of Orders effectively as a group. And we end up going till midnight a lot. And it just feels like a lot of that is repeated points. I've tried to get better at it. I don't know if I have or not. But I would hope that the chair and vice chair would really kind of enforce those Robert's Rules of Orders and discussion protocols so that we can have more time efficient meetings.
I will try. Carolyn.
Okay, in 6.2C, this is kind of about similar topics here. Shall not engage in debate or discussion with any individual, but may be recognized by the chair to ask the speaker clarifying questions. So this sounds like when we're debating or discussing, actually deliberating, and someone states their viewpoint, it's appropriate to ask them questions if you don't understand their viewpoint, but it's not appropriate to disagree. You can state your own viewpoint, but not to disagree with something that's been said. Is that correct?
Well, this is 6.2 is.
It's regarding 6.2C is regarding public appearances, not planning commission debate.
Okay, I got confused there. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. I have something about 6.4 when you get there.
We're there.
Okay. Okay, regarding a statement of dissent. It sounds like the statement of dissent has to be made during the meeting, on the spot. Is that correct? Or is it allowed to be sent in later?
That's a good question for Deputy Director Van Gorp. You know, one of the things that we're trying to enforce, or not enforce, it's the wrong word, trying to encourage with these bylaws is it's the will of the commission. It's the will, the same as it's the will of the council. It's not the individual commissioners. It's the decision of the body. and our legal advice that we received from the city attorney and assistant city attorney was as it's presented in the bylaws.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think in the past, we have allowed, or people have been permitted to submit.
And just because it's not in the bylaws doesn't mean that you couldn't ask to submit one. You know, so it doesn't, there are guidelines to how you guys run your meetings. As much as we want to think of every little thing and address everything, there is still leeway. It is still the will of the commission.
Yeah, and if you look at the last sentence in B, it talks about no other statement is proper or will be allowed to be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. So I think what this is really directed to is what gets recorded as the official action of the commission.
That's
And
correct.
there's nothing to prevent you from communicating with city council about matters that come before us or that are otherwise.
That is correct.
Adam?
I kind of like the verbiage here saying that Commissioner XX verbally stated it, because then, you know, for members of the public, if they're reviewing this, they say, oh, there was a dissent. Okay, I'll go watch the video. I think if we, you know, I think encouraging us to add a sentence if in those rare situations is good, because otherwise, if it's an email to city council or an email to staff, that's a lot harder for members of the public to access. So I kind of like how it is worded.
Mhm. Can see some real benefit to doing it that way. So just wondered how that would work.
Yeah, there's nothing to preclude that process or follow-on process with the council.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else in 6 from anyone else? Carolyn?
Yeah, on this no surprises rule. I guess my first concern is that is the title, you know, the description of it as a rule. I think that we have in Appendix C of these bylaws, if we could scroll down and take a look at that first and see the context of that for my comments about this as to whether it's necessary or needed. It would be C7, I believe. Okay, so yeah, this one is to me appropriate and sufficient. We're being told that we should submit questions for significant information that's needed for a meeting as far as in advance the staff can prepare. And I think that's a really good idea. And it's not presented as a rule or you have to do this. You know, you can make some decisions as to what's appropriate. So I think this statement is sufficient for this, and I would not be in favor of a rule as it's worded. If we go back up, I have some more specific things to say about that rule. Okay, so in general, you know, I have had enough time in the many years I've been doing this to read a packet, study that packet, gather my concerns together, come to the meeting, be ready to communicate it. But what I don't have time for is to prepare my comments, sometimes even 2 weeks in advance, or be required to prepare my comments in advance to whatever, you know, time period is proposed here, and to read the comments and questions of all the other commissioners. It's as if we're starting, you know, the meeting in advance of the meeting. And boy, I don't have time in my personal life for all of that, but I do have time to come to a meeting prepared to deal with it, deal with the packet. So I don't know, I really have some real concerns about this do things in advance things. So that's a start.
Adam?
Sorry. I was finishing some dinner.
Bad timing.
Yeah. I completely agree with Commissioner Boatsman on this. While it's, yeah, and I mean, I don't try to blindside someone with questions in a meeting, but I think this is an unreasonable standard to hold to. I do understand for city council why they have it. They have a lot more business on each agenda. They really need to move things along quickly. I've seen Mayor Neese move meetings very fast, but I'm concerned that this would push a lot of the sausage making and decisions and back and forth discourse into email and out of these meetings here. And the way I see it is, as commissioners, we serve the residents of Mercer Island. Let's make it as easy as possible for them to just watch the video and see, how does the commission come to this? If we have, as Commissioner Boatsman said, the meeting before the meeting, it's going to be that much harder for them to see how we came to a decision or recommendation or the discussion that ensued. So I think for openness to the public, I'm very concerned with this 6.5 as worded.
Victor?
So to take a contrarian view, I actually support this. I think that this is being misread. This doesn't shut down questions. This doesn't shut down preparation. Having watched the council for nearly a decade, I think I understand the genesis of this. And this is literally so that there isn't a surprise curveball that comes in at the 11th hour that city staff is not prepared to address and other members of the commission are not prepared to address. I think I'll remind everyone that the idea here is to standardize this as much as we can across all the boards and commissions. And so we can't have one rule for the commission and other rules for, let's say, the council and all that. So I'm very supportive of this. I don't think it shuts down any sort of line of questioning or preparation. It doesn't force things into a back room, but at the same time, it also does prevent a commission member from throwing curveballs in at the last minute.
Chris?
I don't love the rule, but I'm okay with it. I mean, all 3 sentences are qualified, so it's not an absolute bar. And as I read emerging issues, I'm reading it more like Victor is, that this is like a whole different thing, as opposed to, something that comes up when you read materials and think, well, this is related to that. And at that point, best efforts would still allow you to raise it. So I don't see that it shuts down. I don't see that it's going to cause me any concern, but my vast experience is probably not worth a lot. So thanks.
Yeah, I had a slightly different concern, but I tend to agree with Victor and Chris with you, because as we're working through especially code and like the comp plan issues, we often make changes in real time. And we craft verbiage based on what's been discussed and put forth to improve things. And I think that's not what this is intended to address. I think, as Victor pointed out, the key language in the second sentence is substantial amendments and/or revisions to an agenda item. The word is substantial. And if you're trying to make a major change to something that is being proposed, then I do think it's appropriate that get the staff and the rest of the commission have a heads up at that. That doesn't preclude addressing things as they emerge in real time in the course of a discussion. Andrea?
Yeah, the Vice Chair and Commissioner Ratius are exactly right. This doesn't preclude you from bringing up things in the meeting. The intent of 6.5 is to help the Planning Commission facilitate productive meetings so that if a substantial amendment is being proposed, everyone on the commission is aware of it beforehand so that we're able to think about the amendment that's being proposed and not being asked to think on your feet about a substantial amendment or revision. It doesn't preclude anything from being proposed during a meeting. It really just is to help make sure that staff, if you have questions for staff that are substantial in nature, they have time to prepare answers for those questions so that you get the best answers to your questions possible so that you can have a good productive meeting. It's not meant to be prohibitive. It's meant to help facilitate good discussions.
Carolyn?
Yeah, a couple of words in the paragraph here are concerning. The first part talks about, we agree not to propose substantial amendments and or revisions unless providing each other 48 hours. Okay, so it sounds like we're free to decide what is substantial. Okay. But then the next sentence, it says that the commissioners will use best efforts, provide staff advance notice of any questions or concerns they may have regarding an agenda item prior to the public meeting. So the will word, I think, should be changed to should. And any questions or concerns, I think, should be, again, the same language, substantial questions or concerns. I spend, for example, this day working on this packet and going through it again and, refining my concerns and how I would suggest any amendments. And, if I have 30 things on my list of things I'd like to say, this is telling me that all of them have to be sent in advance. I don't think that's appropriate.
No, it's not saying you have to send them in advance. It's just saying you'll try and make an effort to.
Mm-hmm.
You will make your best effort to send them in. And that's the intent of it. It again, this one is a direct copy and paste from City Council Rules of Procedure.
I would also suggest changing the paragraph instead of no surprises rule to prior notification.
Chris?
I think my hand's down.
Oh, all right. Do you have a comment, question?
No.
Okay. Kate?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say that I kind of see both sides of this, and I think I always bring up the equity issue here, but you don't see a ton of working moms with kids serving on boards and commissions. And I think we're generally a population that's underrepresented, and because we just don't have time, and so I share Carolyn's concern about, the ability, if I get an agenda packet on Thursday and I'm taking care of my kids, or we're going somewhere on the weekend, trying to get ready on Wednesday when I'm working and the kids have activities, that's tough. I think we should have a representative government. And so I appreciate what you're saying, Andrea, about it's not an absolute. I did submit some comments to Adam an hour before this meeting. Sorry, Adam. But that's the best I could do. So I don't feel bad about that. And I'm hoping that means I didn't do anything terribly wrong. It would have been better if I got comments in earlier, but it's okay. And they're still part of the record.
That's exactly it.
Okay, thanks.
We try, but life happens too.
Adam?
I'd like to see us formalize that try. So I'll agree with Commissioner Boatsman on commissioners suggesting commissioners should use best efforts and talk about substantial. And I'll just stop at that.
Yeah, I think that point is a good one. Should be a little more parallel construction, because the last sentence refers to any questions or concerns, and that should also tie back to the substantial test up above in the second sentence.
Also tying to just trying to get you the best information possible if you have lots of questions. So the more time you're able to give staff, if you have lots of questions, if they're questions that staff have to research, then they have the time to do the research. That's all it's trying to say, but none of it binds you to it. Like Commissioner Hughes said, when she had the time was an hour before the meeting, and that's okay too.
Adam, is that an old hand or a new comment?
New comment, if I may, on a different one. I will say on 6-7, my high school Latin teacher would want me to make this comment. The phrase ex parte, since it's Latin, I would suggest we italicize that.
True enough. So, so 6.6 does address the conduct covered in the RCW and the Mercer Island Code. And the only comment I would have on 6.7 is that again refers to conflict of interest, and probably there and up above where we flagged it, there should be a reference to the code provisions, as defined in those code provisions, to make it clear that there's not a sort of nebulous conflict of interest standard, which was essentially the core of my complaint 2 years ago. Because it wasn't tied to the statutory requirements. Chris, do you have another comment, or is your hand still stuck?
It's funny, my button says raise hand, and so I assume it's down. Now it says lower hand. But I guess do have a comment. Just going back to 6.5, I'm not sure where we left things. I mean, I think the suggestion that you made, Mike, to amend, or that Adam made, or whoever, to amend the last sentence is good. I think that's better that way. And is that going to happen automatically, or do we need to do a motion? I'm not sure how we make that happen.
Any amendments can be proposed at the September meeting. Any amendments that
Okay.
are proposed will need to go. The commission can make the proposed amendments, and then they will need to go before the city attorney's office before they can be approved.
So, Andrea, are you keeping track of these suggested changes so that we can review them in September?
I have a rough keeping track of them, but the point of making amendments would be at the September meeting. I got thrown into presenting today because Deb and Allison I found out at 4 o'clock I was presenting, so.
Okay. Well, we'll try not to hold you to it too much and try to keep track of it ourselves.
But the one thing that you'll keep hearing from me is consistency with city council rules of procedure, and consistency with the other boards and commissions rules of bylaws.
So that sounds to me like you're telling us that we're not allowed to change anything in there.
You can propose changes, but it will be vetted by the city attorney's office. Because there are slight differences, but it's just remembering that these are guiding bylaws. Most of it, it's not going to say just because there's a no surprises rule doesn't mean that a commissioner can't send in all of their questions 5 minutes before the meeting. There is room to make amendments, but I just want that in the front of the commission's mind of the purpose of this very large rewrite is a sense of consistency. So if we had a Parks and Recreation commissioner who, when they finished their term on Parks and Recreation Commission, wanted to come and be a planning commissioner. They're not having to learn a whole new set of bylaws because they all are advisory boards for the city of Mercer Island.
Yeah, the only problem I see with that approach is that we're really the only body that works on legislation consistently.
Yes,
Occasionally,
but
I
the other
assume-
boards do make recommendations to the city council in different ways.
Yeah, but we do probably a lot more sort of drafting on the fly as we work through this stuff. So I think that some leeway for this body would be appropriate. So, but we can take that up in September.
And it's also the will of the body, it's just that is the purpose behind the bylaws and the goal of the city clerk's office, who's in charge of the boards and commissions, is to just help bring some consistency so that you guys are able to run meetings that you feel are efficient.
Victor?
One more comment on going back to 6.5. I think what we should consider is actually splitting this in two. I hear the commission kind of focusing on two parts to this. There is the true no surprises portion of this, and thinking back to I think where the genesis of this came from, which was on the city council. The example I'll give is on a previous council, after 3 months of budget discussions and multiple readings, at the final reading at about, let's say 11 o'clock at night, 11:30, a council member came in with a motion to fund an item that had never been discussed before. That's a surprise. And that is unfair to both the public, it's unfair to the other commission members or the council members, and it's unfair to the staff. And I think that's the original genesis of this rule. And I'm very, very supportive of that. There's a second part of this, which is more of a courtesy, which is, hey, we may have questions, we may need clarification, and that's not necessarily a surprise. That's part of preparation. But as a courtesy to the staff, there is an ask to say, hey, give the staff some advance notice on your questions. And I think these are two separate issues, and I would suggest separating them out, because we as a commission are struggling with both parts of this, and different parts of this commission are focused on different parts of this rule. And I think let's just split the two, split the thing so that it's actually clear, or take the part that's a courtesy and move it up to, I can't remember there was another section that we were reviewing earlier that had a bunch of you shall and you shan't and all that. So you may want to put that up there instead. It'll decrease the confusion here.
Carolyn?
I would add that there's also another division. It's possibly, something different is needed in terms of letting staff know about questions, about information they might need to bring to the meeting, versus providing your comments to fellow commissioners. The section in attachment C, fully covers, the courtesy or the need to notify staff for things they'll need to prepare for at the meeting. But we have the notifying commissioners mixed up with the staff, and I'm not sure that the need is the same.
Okay, anything else? Anything in the appendix A?
Yeah, this one let me get my hand up here.
Carolyn?
Yeah, number 9, just a motion to postpone to a certain time. The question I had is that, excuse me here. Uh, Okay, the motion is debatable as to the reason for the postponement, but not to the subject matter of the motion. I just don't understand what that means. Are you able to clarify, Andrea?
Let me read it 1 second so I can wrap my brain around it. So basically what it's saying is that if somebody makes a motion to postpone to a certain time, at that point, the debate can no longer be about the topic that is being postponed. The debate then turns to when is it being postponed to?
Okay, okay, I see. And it looks like number 10 has a similar clause, but it's actually the opposite, I think. It's not amendable, but okay, whatever. I think that's clear enough. Not likely to use that one very often. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on appendix A? Okay, moving on to B. Any comments on B? Carolyn, is that a new hand or an old hand?
Nope. Okay,
No comments on B. Any comments on C? Okay. Any comments about next door? I'm sure we all have quite a few, but probably not appropriate. No official comments on appendix C. Okay, well, I think we have got through that. Thank you, Andrea. Andrea, that's very helpful. And so as I understand what you're telling us is that if we want specific changes made, we should come back with those specific changes in September.
Correct.
Okay.
And the questions that I was unable to ask, I think there was one I said was for the city attorney. There might have been one that was still remaining for Allison. I encourage you to email those questions into staff so that they can get you those questions before September to think about changes that you would like to propose. Yes, we're aiming for consistency, and I don't want it to sound like you can't amend the bylaws because they are the Planning Commission bylaws. But I just asked you to be mindful in those amendments to make sure that you're creating guiding principles for the commission now and into the future and not for individuals, because it should be something that is for the will of the body.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So I think our next order of business brings us to Adam, which is the 2024 annual docket presentation. Adam, you're handling that, I assume, right?
I am, yeah. Let me share my screen. I put together some slides. This was another presentation that I got handed today, so we'll see how it goes. But let me just get this up here. All right, so tonight we wanted to give you just a quick overview of the annual docket to get you prepared for when we'll be discussing this coming up in the fall. There are some key dates coming up, and so we wanted to give you a heads up. So the first question, mainly for our new planning commission members, is like, what is the annual docket? This is the process by which we, the members of the public, can propose changes to the comprehensive plan or the development code. And then also through this process, those those proposals that are of a high priority can be added to the city work plan. So those then become projects that we would take up in the next year. A good example would be the SMP amendment that we just worked on this spring. That was a docket item that was added to our work plan last year, and it ended up going through the Planning Commission's process just a few months ago. The general process is we have a window for application September 1st through October 1st. We publish notice that we're accepting those applications in August. So the public knows that they can submit those requests. Then in October, the Planning Commission will review those requests and make a recommendation to the City Council as to which of those proposals should be added to a future work plan. And then before the end of the year, so in November and December, the City Council will adopt the final docket, and that adds those projects to the upcoming work plan. The recommendation that you make goes to the City Council, and it basically outlines the projects or the proposals that you feel the city should take up in the coming year, so that those are like higher priority things. Again, kind of returning to that recent SMP amendment. The Mercer Island Beach Club needed to repair their facilities, and the code needed to be amended to address that. And so it was a higher priority item that was added to our work plan. And really that recommendation is more or less a prioritization of those proposals, saying, you know, these are things that are a higher priority, and which items are maybe a lower priority. That's the essence of the recommendation. The next steps for the docket process, as I mentioned, we will post notice that the application window is opening in September. We'll do that in about mid-August. And then through the month of September, folks can submit their annual docket applications. And then staff will make a recommendation to the Planning Commission on those annual docket applications. You'll be briefed on what came in and that staff recommendation at your October 25th meeting. And then we'll be looking to get your recommendation at that meeting. And then before the end of the year, the City Council will make their decision on the final docket. That's pretty much it. We just wanted to give you kind of a flyover on the docket process, so that you know kind of what's coming and what it doesn't just kind of come out of nowhere when we start talking about this stuff in October. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Kate, you want to raise your question now or
I think it was answered.
Yeah, you know, the question, I guess, is, do we as a body want to propose some type of clarification to the council as a work item? I think would be the appropriate way to handle that.
Yes, so the Planning Commission can submit docket proposals, or individual planning commissioners can submit docket proposals during the application window. If you're thinking about applying for a docket application, this goes for any member of the Planning Commission or any member of the public that's watching tonight. We recommend that you reach out to staff ahead of time to make sure that you have enough materials. We have an application form on the city website, and we want to make sure that we're getting enough information. In the past, we've gotten some proposals that were maybe like a sentence long, and that's not really enough information to evaluate. So we encourage anybody interested to reach out to staff about submitting an application. But in terms of the clarification on the decision criteria, you could propose that through the docket process, and then the council could decide whether or not to assign that to us.
Carolyn,
Oh, Carolyn, you're on mute.
Adam, I think I heard you say that when we're looking at these proposals, we should be thinking about how much the proposed item is needed versus the merits.
Mhm.
So I was a little puzzled by that because I thought, well, if the merits of the idea are really, really strong, wouldn't that be something that's needed? So
Yes, but I
understand
guess
really quite what you meant there.
no, what I meant there is that when you're evaluating these, it's better to think about the SMP amendment is another good example. I'll keep going back to it, but you know that the proposal there, we didn't end up adopting what was proposed, the language that was proposed there. And so that the language that was proposed is not really the thing that we need a recommendation on. It's just whether or not we need to amend the SMP. So it's kind of that higher level. Is this proposal something that should be moved forward because it needs to be done, or is it rather than the specific language in the proposal? Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. And then another question I had is I think this docket process is maybe about 5 years old now or something. The city was taken to task for not having a docket process, so they put one together, and we've been doing this for not so many years. But as the years go by, what I have seen is it is less and less likely for a docket request that isn't a paid docket request, for example, someone trying to, do a development proposal, to actually go anywhere. So, the public is invited by this process to propose a change in the city code or the comp plan. But since the work plan is already jammed, as the years go by, more and more, the council just says, no, there's no time to do this. But even if they do put it on the work plan, again, the work plan is so jammed that they don't provide enough of a public process to feel comfortable with making a change. So I really have to question whether this docket process is really fulfilling the intention for which it was designed by the state legislature as implemented by Mercer Island. And what could be done about that?
Through the docket process, you could propose amendment of that code section that governs the annual docket. That's something that could be docketed. I mean, I think the problem with this is always the available resources to get a project done, right? And that's what the council ultimately decides on. Sometimes with the docketing too, it can be delayed for a year or two if it's not like a super high priority. So but that's at the discretion of the city council. I think for this process, again, if you wanted to propose amendment of that process, you could do that through the docket process.
So I really appreciate you mentioning holding over an idea to take up in a subsequent year or even 2 years later. When I looked at many other cities and how they were handling these same things, some are very clear about doing that. If they get a good idea, but they can't do it this year, they hold it over. But our criteria say, if there isn't enough, resources to do this year, that's a reason for denying it. And it usually is denied. So what I would suggest is, a kind of a consciousness raising of our officials, commission, council, that you can hold these over. It allows you're allowed to hold them over. And that might create a feeling like this is a process that really works for the public. And also regarding using the docket process to request a change in the docket process, that was tried last year. The council rejected it. So just to throw that out there.
any other questions or comments?
Oh, I do have one more. All right.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
In regards to whatever criteria it is that we're going to be asked to use as a commission to look at proposals. The criteria we've used in the past are pretty dense. You know, they take some research to figure out if the criteria is met. Could we ask, or, you know, I guess I am asking, would it be possible for staff to come to this docket decision meeting with the information whether or not the proposal meets the criteria? For example, one of the criteria says it meets the provisions of the comprehensive plan, which is a, 200-page document as far as I know. So it would be super if we knew in advance that a proposal meets the comp plan or doesn't meet the comp plan, but we can't figure that out sitting in a meeting or even do it on our own. It's too much,
So one of the items on the application form that we recently added is we ask applicants to do some of that analysis ahead of time. So provide some of that information. And then I think the staff recommendation can look at that a little bit further. I'll get your comment to Allison when she's back. And yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, reading the staff memo on this and going through the process the last couple of years, I think those of us who have been around for a few years are realizing that the choke point is resources and time. And there is, with rare exception, anything that passes through that eye of the needle and gets recommended by staff to council. And council does not seem to second guess the recommendation of staff regarding resources or how much time would be needed, nor do they dig into it very deeply, as far as I could tell by watching, especially last year's council meeting on it. So, I think the point of, trying to get some type of carryover process or something along those lines might be a useful exercise, so that things that get proposed that are evaluated have merit, but simply cannot get through that eye of that particular needle, don't get lost forever. So that alone might be a benefit to the process and might make the public think that they're actually, contributing to the legislative process. Okay, I think we're done with that, Adam. Thank you very much. And I move on to our last item. This one I assume is going to take some time. So why don't we take a 10-minute break and then come back and we'll start in on the comp plan update economic development element.
So we're still breaking.
I think we're waiting for Kate. And I think that's it.
Chris, you're traveling somewhere, aren't you? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Quito right now.
Where? Quito.
Quito in Ecuador.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's wild times. Been looking forward to this the whole time, thinking, oh boy, I can break up this vacation with a 3-hour planning commission meeting.
Oh, dear.
Oh, it's fine. I'm teasing.
Sometimes not so good.
I'm just fascinated by 3 hours. We're gonna cut this at 3 hours?
Yeah.
I was being optimistic.
Bless your heart.
Actually, the good news for me, the place I'm at, I can't plug in anywhere, so I just may run out of power at some point, and then I'll just be gone.
All right, we'll know what happened then.
Right, if I disappear, that's what happened. I didn't give up. I just ran out of power.
What is the weather like there?
Just had a huge hailstorm, but Quito's up at like 9,000 feet or
Yeah,
something.
It's
Up
really
high. So it's been pleasant, actually, cool, but pleasant.
Okay, I think we're all here. So Adam, our final item of regular business is the comp plan update, economic development element, second draft. Welcome, Adam, and we're interested in hearing your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, so tonight we'll be taking a look at the economic development element, the second draft that was provided last week. We received quite a few comments on it, so we'll start taking a look at those and give you an overview of where we're heading with this. So our just as a refresher, the economic development element is a new element of the comprehensive plan. And this element will set the goals and policies that will guide our economic development decision-making at the city for the coming years. The element details the projects and programs that the city will undertake to support its local economy as we seek to grow the local economy here. We received several comments. I think 5 planning commissioners, by my count this afternoon, have submitted comments on the first draft. So we'll take a look at some of those. 4 comments were received prior to the staff report. And then the 5th comment, as Kate mentioned earlier, came in just this afternoon. So I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. 2 of the comments, Chris Gell's comment and Adam Regheb's comments, came in prior to the comment period ending. And then we received 2 comments after the comment period. So those first 2, the reason that those are included in the matrix is because I received them at time. The other 2, I just didn't have time to get them into the comment matrix prior to getting the staff report out last week. We also received 2 public comments on the first draft, and those were included in attachment C of the staff memo. And the complete comments are provided in that attachment, as well as a summary in the matrix, the comment matrix. Those comments that I received prior to July 12th or on July 12th are categorized in the comment matrix. And then I also went through, and where edits were proposed, I showed those edits in strikeout and underline. And then I also, on the goals and policies, where those strikeout and underlines appear, I tried to include the comment log number, so the number from the comment matrix, so you can see where that edit had come from in the draft. Those comments that came in after July 12th, as I mentioned, I didn't have a chance to get those into the matrix, and they haven't been incorporated into the draft in the same way that the other comments were. I'm planning to do the same kind of categorization and get them inserted into the draft after this meeting tonight, and get those to you sometime in August so that you have some time to consider those. Because there's quite a bit of, we received a lot of comments, and so there's a lot to get through, and we want to give you plenty of time with those comments to consider them all together. In the staff memo, I categorized the comments into 3 different buckets. There were quite a few comments that fell into the simple amendments category. And those are like minor amendments that don't really change the policy direction. So like, for example, a lot of the comments on the introduction of the element, those were just kind of simple wording changes and don't change the overall meaning of the documents in terms of like what it's telling us to do. So I grouped those in with the simple amendments. The next bucket is the deliberation needed category. And these are like smaller text changes that also affect the policy direction. So most of the comments that are categorized this way really only need a decision whether or not to make those changes. I mean, we can, as we're going through them, we can, you can propose, slight changes to the wording if you'd like. But in general, these were kind of just slight changes to the policy, but we need the planning commission to weigh in on. And then the third bucket is the deliberation and direction needed. And these are comments where a change is proposed that would change the direction of the policy in the draft, but then also there was like some room for debate and discussion. And if we're going to go forward with those amendments, staff will need some direction on drafting new policy language or some kind of direction as to where we're going to go with that amendment. So those are the 3 categories. And like I said, Kate, Angie, and Carolyn's comments will get categorized for the next draft that we send out, the next version of this, so that you can see those. And they'll also get inserted into the text. Our review process for tonight, what I'm proposing is that we can look at the simple amendments and agree to those by consensus. And then over the next month and a half, while we have the recess, I propose that that the planning commission consider those other more substantive, substantial amendments to the policy language kind of on their own, and then come back at the September 27th meeting, and we can go through those more substantial amendments and those needing direction. We can go through those as a group, but I wanted to give everybody a chance to review those. And then also, because we got 3 comment letters in after I had finished the staff report, wanted to get a chance for everybody to see those as well and consider them together. So tonight I'm expecting that we'll just get through those simple amendments, and then we can come back to the more substantial ones.
So Adam, thank you very much for all the work you put in on this. There's pretty massive undertaking with all the comments. And I thought it tied together quite well. You had to kind of go back and forth between the draft and the matrix, but once you got that rhythm down, it was able to work through it and to understand it quite well. So I applaud you for your effort. It was very well done.
Thanks. Yeah. 47 different proposed amendments, and was quite a bit to try and manage, and now we've got some more. So we'll
yeah, I thought the idea of a matrix was quite appropriate.
Kate, I see your hand here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I only have 7, and they're all substantive and requiring deliberation. So they'll get punted till next time anyway. I'm not going to wordsmith staff documents typically.
Great.
Adam.
I I came prepared to discuss all of the comments put forth here, and especially knowing that we have 3 more sets of comments coming at us for the next meeting. I would propose we try to at least get through as much as possible, independent of the level of depth of discussion anticipated.
So would your thought, Adam, be that we just work through the document and go as far as it carries us tonight, or how do you view that happening mechanically?
That's what I as I said, I came prepared to discuss what the information that was put in front of us, and it seems like there's a large amount of information that's going to be added to the next one. So just my opinion. That's all it is.
Given the staff memo, I'm a little concerned that everyone doesn't necessarily have the same level of prep. So unless there's a consensus to go that route and just work as far as we're comfortable, I think I'd feel more comfortable following Adam's lead and focusing more on the larger group, which are mostly editorial changes, but some of which have some meaning. So what's the consensus of the group? Kate?
I was going to say that I have read all the materials and I'm prepared to discuss them. And I was actually going to propose a bulk motion to just accept all those first category documents, because I didn't see anything there that, I agree with Adam's assessment that they're not, they're editorial. There's something a technical editor would do. They're not really changing the content. I think you did a really good job of parsing those. So I think we could get through it faster if we didn't look at every instance of and of instead of an in or an.
Carolyn? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm prepared to go through the document tonight, page by page, and look at something, whether it's simple, trying to categorize it as to being simple or not simple, or needing discussion or not needing discussion. I would just soon just go through the document. I have my comments organized, by page number, and I can share them with people. And they may have comments about the same concern, or may have been sent in already, or may not have been sent in already. So I'm ready to go through the document.
Chris?
Yeah, I could see sort of going through the document, and if it turns out to be an easy discussion, maybe just spend a minute or two per comment, and if it's easy discussion that we agree one way or the other, then we can take it off the the play for next time. And on the other hand, if it gets a little bit some clear differences or a situation where it may depend on creating some wording for next time, we can identify those as the ones that need to be held over to September, but something kind of a light and breezy cut through the whole document.
Adam?
I'll just say, I think details matter. I would be opposed to a blanket approval of basic comments, and I can appreciate the desire to perhaps trim the level of deliberation today. And I think given our prior discussions about staff wanting to have ample time to prepare and get direction, I think if we're going to discuss something today, let's discuss the deliberation and direction needed ones. Just my thoughts.
Victor, do you have an opinion on this?
Sure. My vote would be to do what the staff came prepared to do, and to accept kind of the staff direction on this.
Well, we don't have a real clear consensus on what to do. We can do the staff route. We can go page by page. I hesitate to, or we can do a bulk approval.
Sorry.
Can I withdraw bulk approval and just because I can understand why we might not want to do that. But can we do a process where it's a thumbs up, thumbs down going through the small ones at least, just to have something slightly more efficient? Does that work for others? And then at least
Yeah,
we're
you're-
looking at all of them, and if there is a need of debate, we can do the debate.
Yeah, Kate, you were kind of going where I was going to simplify this so that we don't have discussion about things that we don't have to have discussion about. Chris?
Sorry, I should be down, but I guess I'm not. And
Okay. Adam?
I would like to make a motion to go through the comments page by page and reevaluate if we wish to continue at 9:45 p.m. Pacific time.
I will second that.
So would that incorporate a sort of a quick thumbs up, thumbs down on the simple ones as we go? Okay. Okay,
If it's,
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Looks like that's what we're gonna do.
Okay, well, let me share my screen. Maybe a clarifying, I think it would be the best use of our time if we focused on the goals and policies. Because again, like that introductory text is maybe less important. I think where we need the most direction is in the goals and policies. Is that?
Yeah, on the other hand, the introductory text should be pretty fast because most of those are just quick thumbs up. Carolyn?
yeah, I think that, you know, from my perspective, the introductory text, you know, kind of sets up the reason for proposing a goal or a policy later. So I would love to have a chance to, you know, speak about that a little bit.
Okay, well, I'll start at the beginning then. Let me share my screen. Got the document up here. Right.
Adam, would it be appropriate, given I sent this so late, for me to send it to other commissioners? Or is that something I'm thinking about our rules of operation and I don't send it to everyone?
Yeah, I can forward your written comments to the group, and then if as we're going through here, if there's
I
something.
can flag
you wanna
them,
bring
yeah.
up, yeah.
Thank
bring
you
it.
so much.
So the first proposed change is on page 1 in the first paragraph, changing in the center of King County to between Bellevue and Seattle, and striking that from the last sentence. I see 2 thumbs up. Commissioner Gels proposed this one, so I assume his thumbs up.
Yeah, we can assume that his are a thumbs up.
So the next proposal was striking this line from the table, and there was also a comment on the format of the table.
I think you actually missed something.
Oh, did I?
Thought I saw another line. Yeah, right. So there's line 11, 12 too.
Oh, I grouped that in kind of quick, but
Okay, got it.
yeah. We're all right. So there was a comment on the table proposing striking these lines where there's a 0%. And then also on the format of the table, I agree that the format could be improved. Our table formatting and everything will get fixed when we put this through our design that we're going to have for the overall comp plan. See 2 thumbs up. All right. Then finally, at the bottom of page 2, in this final paragraph, there's some minor edits to the wording of the paragraph about education.
So Carolyn, Adam, or Carolyn first.
Okay, on this one, I am wondering what is meant by the education level as described for King County when it says have at least earned an associate's degree, and why that is stated differently from the education level of residents of Mercer Island. I'm not sure I put that question very clearly, but if not, I'll try again.
Are you asking on line 8 why it doesn't say at least earned?
Yeah, one of them says 25, over the age of 25, have earned an associate's degree or higher. But for King County, it says 20 over 25 have at least earned an associate's degree. What is the difference? What is the reason there? It sounds a little odd.
I don't think there's a meaningful difference, because one saying earned an associate's degree or higher and the other saying at least an associate's degree. I think,
Oh,
yeah.
could you word those the same? Because somehow it sounds to my ear a little less complimentary to the King County population. So I think the wording should be exactly the same for those two. Earned a degree or higher, I think is a better way to put it. No, I would get the word at least out of there as my suggestion is to
Oh,
delete
I see.
the word at least. Yeah, that's my suggestion.
And why are we going away from a college degree?
I don't think we did. Oh,
Oh, no, we actually.
oh, well, yeah. Mhm. An associate or higher.
Adam,
No,
do you have a
they're the same
question,
thing, though. They
comment?
both say the same.
Yes, I was going to say I would like us to keep the high educational attainment of whatever the rest of line 11, because as Commissioner Boatsman said, intro sets up the policies and goal 5 says Mercer Island has a skilled workforce. So this sets the tone for goal 5. So I think that ought to stay.
Yeah, I'm good with that too. I didn't even think about that. Sorry.
So what's the consensus of the group that we keep that sentence in?
Seems like this consensus is to go back to the original. So let's just do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I had my hand raised for a comment on this, and I don't know who actually proposed the change, but I think part of the idea was that there are a lot of extremely skilled people that don't have college degrees, whether they're artisans or chefs or whatnot. This is kind of an elitist statement to say that having a college degree is what makes you highly skilled, makes you highly paid, usually. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think whoever proposed it might have had that in mind, or maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, I didn't like the statement. I thought it was elitist, so I wanted to take it out for just the reasons you said.
So the choice here, Victor,
So I still have the question, and I don't know whether that was the answer to it. Why are we removing college degree?
that's in line 8.
Yep.
Because it's redundant with earning an associate's degree or higher.
No, associate's degree is different than, well,
Or higher educational attainment.
a college degree and an associate degree are not the same thing.
Right, but the higher educational attainment would include a college degree, a PhD, any of the other higher educational attainments. I mean, that's why I took it out. I thought it was redundant, but you know, people, I couldn't care less. You could leave it as it was.
Well, for this draft, because this isn't the final draft, we'll keep this the same, return to the original, and then we can make it further edits if needed later in the process here. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's proceed on.
Okay.
Carolyn, unless you're moving on to something else, I think we're tabling this for now.
Well, I mean, I had my hand up and I did want to say something. I'm not quite sure why that can't be said.
Okay, well, say it if it's quick.
Well, I just, I'm gonna say something that's completely appropriate to the length of comments that anyone else has been making. So I just want to say I concur with Chris and Kate that the one statement is somewhat elitist. It's probably not needed. And, I also agree with Chris's comment that an associate's degree or higher educational attainment, that says it all. So I think that's really good language.
Okay, we'll deal with that next time.
Right, the next proposed change is on the page 3 under Mercer Island commercial areas. And these are really just kind of an order of ideas amendments to the paragraph. Some slight editorial here. I don't think this significantly changes the meaning. Seeing thumbs around, okay.
There's a typo in outside in the last sentence.
Good catch. And then in town center, just this paragraph, there was a proposal to include parking with residential uses on the upper floors.
Victor?
Just a question, a clarifying question. The underlines are what? They're additions?
They are, yeah.
Okay,
Anything
because I
underlined
think
is new.
we missed line 24 and 25, and so we're just, and again, I'm fine with it, but I'm just unclear as to what we're stopping on.
Oh, sorry, I just gave an overview of the paragraph in total. I didn't specify a line. but-
Krista, do you have another comment?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Line
Okay.
2 on page 4.
Line 2 on page 4 here. I see you one thumb. 4 thumbs. I think we're good on that one.
Yep.
Order of words on line 8 of page 4. I see 2 thumbs, 4 thumbs. All right, and then there's some substantial changes or there's a lot of strikeout on this paragraph under land use connection here. It just kind of tightens up the language, makes it a little more concise.
Adam,
I liked the detail in the original, so I would advocate yeah, for the original, at least, not removing the lines in the middle and replacing them with that sentence, line 25, 26.
Victor,
Sorry, old hand.
oh, Carolyn,
Typo line 30. Adam, and also on page 4, line 45, a couple of typos there. Just that's all I want to mention.
okay. Chris, any comment?
No.
Okay. So it sounds like, is there a consensus to going back to the original or? Okay, there's 1. 2. Carolyn, do you have a new comment? No. Okay, so there's only 2 in favor of the original. I assume does the rest like the change? Okay,
Okay.
so it changes.
The next paragraph here from lines 34 to 42, there are some other slight changes to the text here.
Victor?
Before the changes at line 34, the way you had it originally, I think was the proper grammar. Each of the three areas are, not is. Areas is plural.
I think this is right though, because I think each is singular, but I will I'm seeing nodding heads.
All right.
Clearly I made
I
this
said,
mistake.
I studied economics, so I didn't study.
Adam?
I'm okay with everything, but I would be opposed to the addition in 41. So absent rezoning most, because that's kind of suggesting, hey, I think that's making a suggestion we should rezone. So
Carolyn? No comment. So, any discussion about this? Adam's thought about the absent rezoning language.
I mean, I actually take the opposite perspective, I guess, that unless that absent rezoning, I mean, I think it's correct. And if you don't have it in there, you preclude the possibility of expanding the areas in which commercial development could happen, as laid out in one of the public comments, that, there are ideas out there that I think are worth considering in the long term. I don't think we should foreclose possibilities that we haven't considered.
Kate?
I agree with Commissioner Gels, and in part because we're facing and part of this has to do a comment I have for page 9, with the housing work in front of us, and with, I think, what is a false statement on page 9, that it's multifamily housing's fault that there's no commercial space. It's really like, 95% of the island is in single family residential. That's the donut, and we're focusing on the whole. So, I don't know how we're going to deal with this new state housing law, but I'm assuming that some things are going to have to shift if we're going to even come remotely close to meeting our requirement. So I agree with the edit.
Victor?
I support Adam's comment.
Well, for this one, because there's a lack of consensus, we'll leave it in there. I'll highlight that as needing kind of some additional consideration. But I think there's a lack of consensus here, and so we can hold off on making a determination there one way or the other. Just know. What my highlight means when I come back to this. Okay, so the next proposed amendment is on page 5, the paragraph beginning on line 7, relationship to other comprehensive plan elements. I just realized my line numbers will be slightly different than your draft, but it's what's highlighted on the screen here.
Adam, there were 2 small changes in lines 44 and 46 on page 4.
Oh, yeah, I missed those. Sorry, the next, that paragraph at the bottom of page 4, leading to page 5. There's a slight change to the wording here highlighted.
You've also got a grammar problem. Can takes place.
Oh, the S is struck. It's just hard to see.
Oh, okay.
I see 2 thumbs. The thumbs around. Okay. Now moving to page 5 under relationship to other comprehensive plan elements. This is just a trim up of the paragraph leading into the other pieces there.
Adam,
I like the original. It tells me what I'm going to see before I see it, like a persuasive essay.
Carolyn? Oh, you're mute.
I like the change. I think that they're going to tell us everything we need to know in the subsequent paragraphs. But I do have a proposed change to this paragraph when you get done talking about what you already have there.
So what's the view on keeping it? What's our thumbs up to keep the change or not? Who's opposed to it? So we've got,
Okay, so lack of consensus here. That's another spot I'll flag.
so there's a couple of these, or several, few of these in here. And I understand the point about trying to point us in the direction of where it's going. But from the standpoint of a document that is sort of brief and, gets to the heart of the matter, I think that those changes are valuable in terms of, dealing with a lengthy document. So I'll just leave it at that, and we can.
Point
back
of order,
with it.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I'm seeing some inconsistency in how we're saying no consensus. Like we've had a couple of 2-4 votes here, and on some we've said, okay, like it's gonna go forward. And then in this one, we're saying there's no consensus, even though we have 4 thumbs up. So I'm just, before we move forward, can we get consistent? Like, are we looking for a majority or are we looking for unanimous?
Well, that's a good question.
So typically with these, a way to address that would be to ask if anyone would block consensus. So if you have one member that doesn't agree with the consensus, it's essentially unanimous, but because we're going through this kind of informally, we could just say, would anyone block consensus? And then if a commissioner didn't want to make the change, they could block consensus and then we could come back to it for further discussion. That'd be a clean way to do it. Right. We'll ask that moving forward.
Okay.
Wait, so for this one, can we do an example on this one? Because we just did it. So we had 4 people say keep the edit and 2 leave the edit. So would you then ask, would anyone block consensus on this?
Yes, you would ask. That's the question.
Can you ask the question?
Would anyone block consensus on making this change? All right, no one blocks consensus, so we would then make the change without that being blocked. Good clarifying point. Yeah. So the next set of amendments is to the paragraph on housing here, on the housing element itself. Again, here it's kind of just some clarification amendments.
Carolyn.
I had a question and a proposed amendment for starting up in the previous paragraph that I wanted to run by people, if that's all right.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so this section talks about the relationship of this economic development element to other plan elements. But one thing I'm thinking about is that there are a number of functional plans that are already adopted. Some of them are appendices to the comp plan. Some of them probably should be appendices to the comp plan, but that for some reason hasn't been done yet. So for example, we have an comprehensive arts and cultural plan, which was adopted only in 2018. We have climate action plan. We have a bike and pedestrian plan. We have a parks plan. I don't know if that pertains, but So some of those plans would have a really important, should have an important impact on how this element is put together. So I'm just wondering, staff, about referencing more than other comp plan elements, but also referencing functional plans. Any thoughts on that?
So we could insert some text here doing that, but the most of those functional plans, I can't say with 100% certainty that all of them are this way, but most of them are adopted by reference in their relevant element. So the bike and pedestrian plan, for example, is adopted by reference in and established under the auspices of the transportation element. And so by saying that this is related to the transportation element, it's stating that link too by inference. It's not explicitly spelled out here, but like I said, if you wanted to propose that, we could add that here.
I was particularly, thank you, I was particularly interested and initially thought of the arts and cultural comprehensive plan that the commission recommended for adoption just a few years ago, and which the council adopted. And it is an appendix to the comp plan. And so I was suggesting including saying in the housing section here, in this paragraph, right under the heading, the housing, transportation, utilities, capital facilities, and shoreline master program elements, as well as the comprehensive arts and culture plan, all interact with the local economy in unique ways. So that was what I was proposing, and then another sentence later in the paragraph as well.
Sorry, as well as the arts and cultural what?
Comprehensive arts and culture plan. And before I go further, okay, I'll give you the other sentence, and then I can ask the other commissioners what they think of this. Following the word shoreline bounding the city, it would have a sentence, and this is presuming we don't delete all this stuff. Well, I guess actually my next sentence is irrelevant if you're deleting all of this other text. So I'll just leave that out of it for now. But anyway, I'm just wondering, what do other commissioners, how do they feel about these other important planning documents, which tend to be adopted? And I don't know, I don't hear them being referenced in our further efforts. A lot of people worked really hard on that one, I know that.
Can I be recognized, Chair?
Yes, go ahead. I was waiting for Adam to respond, but.
Oh,
Oh, I was just going to say that I had a similar thought about the climate action plan, which I think is tied to the economy as well. So I don't know what the full list of adopted plans are, unfortunately. I suspect that most of them would tie in. Maybe there's a way to do that globally or maybe this is the global place to do it. But I agree with Carolyn that it's worth noting them, just that as people are thinking about economic development, they're thinking about all of the things it impacts.
What I might propose as a way to do this is after the list of elements here, maybe I can insert a functional plans list that maybe in a sentence or two explains the relationship between those things. And that might be a way to get at it without calling out only one plan or leaving a couple out. I could draft something up for the next review. So let me just add that in here. Is there consensus on that? I saw some thumbs, but. Okay. Carolyn, if it's okay with you, can I drop this interjection here and?
Sure.
Okay.
I did have something else I wanted to add, though.
Okay,
So, a lot of this paragraph is deleted, but I think the sort of thing that I would be looking for is this kind of statement. The Arts and Culture Plan directs the provision of artistic and cultural infrastructure that draw both residents and shoppers to commercial areas. So if there's a rather limited list of these types of functional plans, and you can make a statement, a sentence for each one that says, why is this important to an economic development plan? And, if there are functional plans that don't have anything to do with an economic development plan, they probably don't need to be mentioned. But that's what I would suggest in that paragraph that you're working on.
okay, and you sent me that in your comment?
Probably, but I'm going to send you an amended one.
Okay,
Okay? Following this meeting or perhaps during.
Okay,
I'll make sure to get that in there.
Thank you. I like what you're doing with it.
Great. All right, so moving now to the paragraph on housing, the housing element. There are some changes here. Again, not significant, mostly just reordering the order of ideas in the paragraph. I'm seeing 3 thumbs, 4 thumbs.
Can you tell us what page we're on? I'm not seeing the page number
Yeah.
on here.
And I apologize, my line numbers are getting off because of but we're on page 5. Okay. Let's see, the next change is to the paragraph on utilities, the utilities element. This again is just a minor clarification edit.
Carolyn,
Yeah, I have something to propose for the housing paragraph,
Okay,
aside from the minor changes that were already made. So in my view, housing indirectly impacts the local economy in not just these 2 ways, but in several ways. And what I would add to what you already have right there is, let's see here, keep the conversely higher cost housing can attract higher income residents and customers for local business, but add a comment there and say, though higher cost housing may not translate into more disposable income or a propensity to spend that income at the types of businesses at island commercial areas. I'm just going to read this to you and I can help you with the exact language in a minute. And then what I'm proposing to add is that less expensive multifamily housing may attract residents in and near the town center who are more likely to choose not to own a car and may be more likely to shop local than those in detached single-family housing. The quantity of multifamily housing available may correlate with the market for the basics of everyday living and experiences, such as dining out. So this is an amendment that I'm proposing to this paragraph, because I think we're a little too focused on how beneficial it is for housing costs to be high, when we're not recognizing that lower cost housing and housing that is in and near the town center with people that have no car, that's really a benefit to the town center. So, I mean, I can send you that language, or,
that would be helpful
Okay.
if we end up doing this.
but I'm wondering if how they feel about that concept.
Chris,
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with the concept and I agree. I personally don't like the focus on higher income, housing being somehow better for the business community within Mercer Island. I'm not sure I see that connection, but I guess my thought is just as a matter of function. I mean, we have another draft he's going to send out, and some of the comments, maybe it makes sense just to include them in the next draft and we can look at them ahead of time. I think it's just hard to doing new edits up on the fly, but I'm very sympathetic to the idea. Just
Okay.
not sure we can do that here.
yeah,
But I mean, I guess I defer to you, Mike.
no, I agree with that. Adam,
I like Commissioner Boatsman's first sentence on, hey, it may not translate. But all this stuff about multifamily housing, that becomes too many mays for me. So I would support her first sentence, but not the others after it.
Okay, well, we'll have a chance to deal with that. Kate?
Yeah, I can say as someone who used to live downtown that I used to spend a heck of a lot more money on Mercer Island than I do now. So I wholeheartedly agree with Carolyn's comment, and more people generally means broader customer base and people who, live in, with the real estate has a walk score for a reason. And that walk score is there because people are going out and spending money because there's places to go spend money. I don't think that's a controversial statement at all. So I think Carolyn didn't you already forward Carolyn's comments, Adam? They're in the agenda packet. So we can,
Those are older.
What I would propose here is for the next draft, I'll include this and we'll flag it so that everybody can see it in line with the text. Again, this is hardly our last bite at the apple, so we'll have the opportunity to look at that in context, I think, before making a final call.
Yeah, this process is a slow moving train.
Mhm. So I'll flag that there, and then when I get the chance to get Carolyn's comment in there, we can look at it then. Anything else on housing before we keep rolling? Seeing shaking heads. So moving to utilities, again, this is a minor amendment to the order of ideas here. See 3 thumbs, 4 thumbs, 5 thumbs, and yeah, I assume that's good. And then capital facilities, that paragraph is also the same, just some minor amendments to the.
Adam?
I'll do a point of order. I know we had 5 thumbs up, but let's for fairness see if anyone's opposed to it or.
Oh, I
blocking.
thought everybody's thumb was up.
Oh, okay. I only heard 5, so apologies.
Was there anybody who was thumbs down on that last one? Hearing none.
Well, and you'll have to bear with me. I can only see 4 of you at a time, so. And then, yeah, so the capital facilities paragraph, were there any comments here? Or are we okay with the amendments as shown?
Victor, are you a naysayer on this? Oh, he's thumbs up. Okay.
Okay,
Didn't realize we were voting on that. Sorry.
all right, and then we'll look at the functional plans. Next is the very minor amendment on page 6 here, relating to current employment and our growth target. Okay, that looks good. An amendment to the paragraph on strengths at the bottom of page 6.
Adam?
This is the economic field we're talking about, so I would say prosperity ought to be at the front of the list.
Carolyn?
Well, there's a few places in this doc where we were kind of having some consideration about whether to change the order of things or not, but I don't know, I think that it's not necessary to be concerned about what order we put these things in, because it's a list of several things and they're all important. So that would be my suggestion, rather than pursuing that change.
So do we have consensus then on this change as shown on the screen? Okay, that looks good. There's a really minor change of just striking the list of strengths prior to getting into each of those strengths. Seeing thumbs up. Okay. here in the high quality of life paragraph, this is at the top of page 7. There were 2 comments. We had a comment from Commissioner Gels and Commissioner Ragheb. I've shown those as alternatives here. So it's either this top part or this bottom part here. Sorry, that's as good as I could get on showing the differences there. And that's for this sentence here. Adam, do you have a?
It's just a typo in my line 10, third word, should be life instead of live.
Oh,
Third word.
So I suppose, do we have,
Carolyn?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm a bit confused. Am I looking at 2 options here, and where does one option start and the other one end, and so on and so forth?
yeah. So they are in, sorry, this is confusing. There's only so much notation. So it's within the brackets, there's sentence 1 and then sentence 2. It's in either or.
Okay, just give me a chance to read that before you highlight the other one.
Sure.
Life may serve.
Kate, do you have a comment?
I didn't really see this as an either or. I saw the first one of it's just moving to that. It's moving that part up to the first sentence.
Mhm.
And the second part, the second one is adding safe and walkable neighborhoods. And so I don't see that really as an either or. I think it could be both, and I think both are fine. I just don't like the last sentence.
Mm.
Adam?
Yeah, the way I'm reading it is the first one is saying quality of life may draw off-island visitors here. And the other one is quality of life does draw off-island visitors and they may spend money here. That's how I'm reading the subtle difference.
Carolyn?
You also don't have safe and walkable neighborhoods in the first one. Maybe that's obvious, but I haven't heard anyone say that. So, you know, the second option, I think adds that. That's, I think, the main difference, right? Am I missing something?
That is the primary difference, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
good with the second sentence. I think safe and walkable neighborhoods is a nice thing to add to our draw, I guess. I'm not so, well, let's see, neighborhoods. I don't know if that draws people to the business area, but I don't, it's okay.
Chris, do you have a comment?
Oh, I guess I'm not as sold on the nexus between quality of life. I think we all love the quality of life on Mercer Island, but how much I see that as part of the strength and focus of the business document. But I don't feel strongly about it, and I'm perfectly happy with anything. I agree with Kate. I don't love the last sentence because, as I say, I see it as a little more tangential than I think some others might.
Victor?
I would unfortunate to hear Commissioner Gell's back off of his original comment, because I was going to say I agree with his assertion that there's not really any proof to any of this around quality of life. I know we discussed this in the Economic Development Subcommittee. It's not really proof of it. We kind of speculate. So yeah, I mean, being absolute and saying it does draw to me is simply not true. And I think that's fundamentally the difference between these two. It's not calling out safe and walkable neighborhoods and reiterating all of the things that contribute to quality of life. The difference to me between these two is quality of life may versus quality of life does, or factors. And so I actually like the first comment better.
And just to clarify, I don't think I really backed off. I prefer the may, but it's not the hill I plan to die on. I have some other hills I'm in trouble on.
Adam?
I'd support Commissioner Golz's with the addition of safe and walkable neighborhoods.
So the second one is Commissioner Gels, and the first one is, who proposed that one? Comment number 1.
Chris Gels proposed this first sentence and Adam proposed the second.
Oh, okay, okay, because I'm hearing people kind of not sure who's proposing what.
So what I'm hearing is that we could drop this sentence altogether and then add safe and walkable up here. And that would do it. That would get us, and then we can tackle this last sentence.
So I would make one minor comment. In a couple places here, we refer to good public schools. I would say the island has more than just good public schools. I don't know if we want to say excellent, but high quality might be appropriate. Something along those lines. Frankly, that's why I moved here in 1992. So, you know, we might beef that up where we reference it.
So do we have consensus on this paragraph sans the last sentence? We'll get that in a second. Okay, and then on the last sentence, a couple of you had some concerns about that.
Yes.
Are you looking for comment?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's tangential. This is about, that's a public safety comment, and it almost sounds like to me, it reads like a little bit of a political slogan, because we're not talking about protecting quality of, I don't know. That's it. Leave it at that.
Adam?
I'm fine with clarifying that it's not referring to public safety, but I mean, this is identified as a considerable strength. I don't think we should compromise or allow a considerable strength to be degraded for the sole purpose of bringing in a few more potential customers. People move here, and our responsibility is to our residents first. So I didn't say it's a considerable strength, but I mean, that's someone else's wording. But yeah, I would support clarifying that this is not just a public safety thing. This is making sure our parks, our open space, our schools, our neighborhoods, and cultural amenities are all protected. Like not paving over a park for a parking lot, stuff like that. Not just police.
It's interesting.
Carolyn?
Yeah, I guess that's helpful, because I was wondering, like, protected from what? Because that's what makes this sentence sort of questionable to me, is because it doesn't say what you're protecting it
Yeah,
from.
no,
I'm like, is this
fair
like a
enough,
Mercer
yeah.
Island nationalist thing? Like, no.
So I think there's a consensus that there is not consensus on the last sentence. So let's table that and move on.
I would really like to make my comment. I
Oh,
haven't
go
had
ahead,
that
Carolyn.
yet. Okay, so where was I? Okay, we've already made a reference to and walkable neighborhoods in the first sentence. So, you know, we've got to the safety part of things. But I think in a list of strengths, which I think this is, I don't think we're talking about worrying about losing our strengths. We're just describing what our strengths are. So I find the statement to be a little bit extra and a little bit frightening sounding. So I would prefer not to have it there.
Okay,
We'll keep it in there for now, and we can strike it if, or maybe it may be that preserved is a better word than protected.
Well, I actually think this paragraph needs to be reworked a little bit. I mean, it starts out with this, the high quality of life says helps attract businesses and workers alike. And now, as I understand Adam's last sentence, which I didn't get before, it's more of a constraint on business to say, look, it's not the attracting we're talking about. It's just when we do this plan, we want to make sure that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And if that's the case, then I'm happy enough with the concept, but I don't think it reads that way. So I think if that's where it's going, I think the whole thing needs to be reworked a little bit.
So what I think we should do is we'll keep this as is, and then at the next round, we'll flag this to come back to this. I've got the no consensus on there, and so we'll know to come back to it when we're in the next round of review.
Well, if people are interested, I would be willing to try to rewrite it in a way that captures both those thoughts. But, you know, if we come back to it, I think we're going to run into the same problem. Or I could work with Adam to rewrite it or something. But, you know, otherwise, otherwise fine. We can just move on, and I'm happy to move on.
Is there consensus to have Commissioner Gels provide some language for consideration at our next review? I can work with him on that. Yeah.
I think if I understood the comment correctly, I think he was offering to work with Vice Chair Ragra. I thought that's the way I read it, but
Either way.
First name problems. Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, you're right, Victor. But, you know, I can do it by myself too. I'm fine either way.
All right, so we'll come back to high quality of life at the next draft.
well, I think we should go ahead and let Chris draft something, maybe run it by the other Adam, and then give it to you, and it'll come into the next draft.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay.
The next proposed change is to the paragraph about high income residents, proposing an additional sentence at the end of the paragraph.
Adam.
Just a clarification, it's the percent gap. It's the percentage gap is closing based on the data that was given to us last year. So I just wanted to make sure it's not the absolute gap, but it's the percentage gap.
What is that telling us that's relevant here? Go ahead.
I would just say that, you know, I would say our median incomes are normalizing closer to the King County average. And I think that's a very significant piece of data to articulate, because that may not be the outside perception.
Carolyn.
It also makes case that we could expect customers coming from other places in the future. There might not be that much difference. I mean, if the gap is closing, it seems like a relevant comment.
So do we have consensus on the addition of this sentence here?
Yeah, I have a comment. I have my hand raised.
Go ahead.
I agree that it's interesting and worth noting. I would say if we're going to note that it should be backed up by data, and that perhaps we should have a Mercer Island and King County column in that table 4 to make it clear. Because if the table backs it up, then I think people will have a hard time believing it, frankly. And if it's true, then let's document that with data. And then the other comment I wanted to make here was that, and maybe I need to workshop this for the next draft, is there's a very large difference between the mean and median incomes of people who live in downtown Mercer Island versus the south end, and the middle of the island being somewhere in between. We're talking like an average of $100,000 on the north end, $150 in the middle, and $250 on the south end. And I think that's very significant. And I think that's worth reporting. And I think it actually gets to the point, and maybe supports the point that Commissioner Boatsman was making earlier, that, it's not just a lot of money that makes people spend money on Mercer Island. The people on the north end who are walking around and shopping there actually make less money. And they're spending a considerable portion of it on Mercer Island. So, I think we're missing something here in talking about Mercer Island as a single economic entity. It's not. And we're different by geography.
Chris, did you have a comment?
I did not, sorry.
Adam?
Adam, if it helps, the data that I am referencing, which I did double check, I'm not making them up, are on page 9, exhibit 5 of the comprehensive plan economic update that was delivered to the commission in August 2022 by the consultant. Yeah, if that helps, just saving you the effort of having to dig them up. And I do want to reiterate it's the percent gap. I did not check the, absolute delta. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Carolyn?
Yeah, I as I read this plan, I had in the back of my mind there's something about where do the people that make a lot of money shop? And I just really appreciate Kate has skillfully teased out what I was thinking about. What do we know about the incomes of various neighborhoods on Mercer Island, and how's that going to affect the success of the commercial enterprises? So thank you, Kate.
Kate, did you have a new comment, or is that? Okay, do we have consensus on how Adam is to handle this? Adam, Adam.
Sorry, it's page 9, exhibit 5. Sorry.
Oh, exhibit 5. Okay.
Yeah, exhibit 5. Sorry. Don't want you to. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So it seems to me the question we have is, Kate and Carolyn have introduced a few new concepts here. And do we have consensus on whether we want to try to expand the data here? Whether we have that data is maybe another question, but do we want Adam to try and dig into that and expand that information? Or are we just talking about, an average for this purposes?
I think for the table here, this direction to add the King County column makes a lot of sense so we can see that in line. The question about like geographic dispersal of income is a little bit dispersal wasn't the right word. Anyway, the distribution of income, that's a little trickier. I could probably, if we need to add it in, I could probably find it by census block group. That may not give us a ton of clarity. I guess there's 2 block groups at the north of the island and 2 at the south. And so that might kind of get at what you're pointing at. I can see about finding that. I don't know if it goes in the element here. I'll provide it in the staff report and then we can decide whether or not we want to add it in.
Okay,
The American Community Survey will give you the information you need. And my intern just wrote a Python code to pull that data. So by block group, if you need it, I'll pass it along.
Okay.
Adam,
I would argue against this. We always hear lots of comments, staff is time limited. I mean, we're already comparing a small city of 25,000 to an entire county. Why do we need to start breaking up the city into smaller pieces? We're creating planning policies for the city as a whole, not subsections of the city. We're already looking at median household income instead of mean, which is the right way to look at it. So I would say let's keep city to county, not this part of the city to the county. My opinion.
yeah. Well, I think there's a legitimate question as to whether that data does anything for our planning purposes. It's pretty illuminating in one respect. Whether it guides any planning or not, let's get it and see if it tells us something. Kate. Carolyn.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Adam, Commissioner Rageb on this. I mean, it would be useful to see that data, but I think that it's just important that the concept of housing that doesn't cost quite as much being valuable to the commercial areas is enough. I don't think we need to go into tables of data comparing Mercer Island residents. So that would be my thought. Useful information, but probably not.
Okay, we'll discuss that in September. Okay.
All right, then there's a minor amendment to strike one sentence from the paragraph following the table. Here at the bottom of page 7. I see 1 thumb, 2 thumbs, 3 thumbs, 4 thumbs. Would anyone block consensus on making this amendment? Okay. Keep rolling. Again, some minor changes here to the paragraph on location of the city as a strength. I see 1 thumb.
Adam.
I do like the mention of public safety. It's been demonstrated by downtown Seattle that without public safety, businesses hurt. So I'm not opposed to the removal of this, but I would, with the caveat that we see public safety somewhere. And that term, not safe and walkable, because that's referring more to Commissioner Boatsman's past concerns about, walking and not getting hit by cars. So I'm fine with it as long as we see public safety somewhere.
Okay, so I think, would anyone block consensus on making the change to the paragraph here on location of the city? Okay. Next, we have the paragraph on weaknesses. Again, here, these are just some minor amendments to the paragraph. See 1 thumb, 2 thumbs, 3 thumbs, 4 thumbs. I can't see Mike and I can't see Kate.
My thumb is up.
Okay. Okay, we've got thumbs on that one. Unanimous thumbs, no blocking consensus. All right, so the next proposed change is to the paragraph on permitting and regulatory environment. There's a couple of changes to the paragraph here. See one thumb up.
Carolyn,
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the minor changes in this paragraph, but I had another change to propose, so I'll go thumbs up with what's already proposed, and then I will tell you what I'm proposing.
okay, Adam? Okay. Carolyn, what's your change?
Okay, the sentence starting, another challenging factor related to permitting is the additional cost that fees and delays in permitting can add to starting a new business. I would just recommend deleting that sentence. I think the construction is kind of unwieldy, and the meaning is repetitive to sentences that follow, and the tone is somewhat negative. For example, the time it takes for permitting is called a delay. Well, when the economic development plan is implemented, they will do some investigation and find out if it's a delay or something negative that should be fixed. And then the phrase additional cost is a little bit confusing. So I would suggest deleting that sentence for those reasons.
I see one thumb for that idea.
Okay.
So would anyone block consensus on making that change of removing that sentence?
I would.
I would too.
Okay,
I think Carolyn can submit it as a comment for the next draft.
yeah, thanks. Okay, so then do we have consensus on the rest of the paragraph as proposed here? Looks like Victor, are you on board?
I don't like the first strikeout.
Let's see.
Yeah, Victor, I read that as being just redundant with the second sentence.
Between the two sentences, I like the first one better. If I had to choose between the two. I saw the same thing. But I think the first one is the second sentence is very roundabout, says the same thing in a very roundabout way. Permitting's an issue. It's a significant issue on the island.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
So that would look like this.
Yeah, it's great. It was just a redundancy issue, so either one's fine.
Okay. Would anyone block consensus on making that change?
Well, I think the second sentence captures some other ideas, including expanding a business. And the first one is only adversely affecting business formation, which I view as different.
Fair point. Fair point. If we could somehow mash the two together and
Yeah, that should be easy enough.
Yeah, I agree with mashing, and I mean, we have to have permitting, and I don't think it's constructive to say in our own document that kind of a blanket statement that permitting's yucky, even though we all have to do it and it does feel yucky sometimes.
I think it's a completely fair statement to make. Permitting is yucky. And it needs to be fixed.
But I like the specificity of the second sentence, so I appreciate the compromise.
So Adam, your mission is to mash those two together,
I'll do my best.
okay? There's consensus that that should be done.
Not, okay. All right, we'll keep rolling. So the next paragraph is, let's see, what is this? On page 9 about affordability and availability of commercial space, the first paragraph here. I think Commissioner Accused has raised her hand.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my written comments will go into the next draft, but I just have a fundamental problem with this entire section because we have a land use code that is extremely restrictive, and many people agree that it should be. But I feel like this whole setup here in these two paragraphs pits two groups that are struggling against each other. You're pitting multifamily housing, which is our lowest income residents, and the desperate and regional need for more affordable housing against small businesses, which are also struggling. And when I said earlier, we're looking at the whole instead of the donut, the fact is that something like 90-something% of the land on our island is single family housing. So that restricts anything else you can do. So I feel like the tone of these paragraphs is really blaming multifamily housing for not having enough commercial space or enough affordable commercial space. But really, it's just that we've chosen to be a single family housing community for the most part. And the impact of single family housing on available commercial space is significantly greater than the impact of multifamily housing. So I don't think it's fair. I just, I'm trying to figure out how to, I offered some proposed language. I might try to fine tune that again, Adam, before the next draft.
Yeah, Kate, I think your point is well taken. That, there does seem to be this seeming conflict between multifamily and retail, but the reality is that our city has chosen over the years to focus all the additional residential growth in the town center, which by necessity requires multifamily, so that it can avoid expanding or allowing any businesses or I'll say smaller scale multifamily outside the city center. So I think it's a good point you're raising, and I think it is something that we should work into this next draft, at least present an alternative perspective on that. Adam?
I disagree with the tone. I think we're looking at data and stating facts. That sentence that Adam Zach moved to the end, I mean, that's data, right? I think, yeah, the city, I would word the observation differently. Is like in the town center area where we have that mixed use, the city has chosen to prioritize multifamily over commercial space, and that's the data. We're just narrating the current state of our town center. So I'm not opposed to it. I don't see a tone here. So I support the changes and the existing paragraphs that Adam and the group he worked with put here.
Well, my
Chris?
suggestion is that there's data missing, because we're saying that the city's not pitting anyone against anyone. It's the economic pressure. It's the fact that if you limit certain uses to a tiny little square and everything else doesn't move, you know, it's like you're saying commercials reduce, multifamilies increase, but we're not talking about single family at all. So what I'm saying is let's put that data in there and show the full picture. And I don't disagree that, you know, if these two uses, commercial and multifamily, are only allowed in this small square, it's economic reality. And most of our business owners have expressed this, that, you know, people make more money off housing than they do off business. So that's what they're going to go for. But that's not multifamily housing's fault, right? That's not the fault of people who can't afford homes. That's not the fault of, you know, it's not the fault of multifamily housing. It's how we choose as a whole to use all of our land in our community. And the fact that these two uses have been restricted to the exact same spot and only that spot, of course, multifamily is going to win because they make more money off it.
Chris?
Yeah, no, I'm really very interested in Kate's point about tone, and you know, I would love to see another draft that sort of she's more comfortable with for the next round. I just don't think we can do this in the abstract, though.
Adam?
I'm curious to see the data that Adam can bring to us, but I will push back on the word constrict, and I would suggest we say influence. Constrict is a loaded word, I believe.
Wordsmithing my notes. I can put some of that information together. It sounds like, though, there's maybe a lack of consensus about this section, generally about the affordability and availability piece. And so I think we can take Kate's comments into, because she's provided some written comments too, and maybe we'll provide more.
I want to wordsmith your wordsmithing. It doesn't might influence, it dictates.
Sure. Okay, we know we need some information about housing or about zoning and how that influences our commercial areas. And I think we can come back when we have maybe some additions to make to this section, but we don't necessarily need to go through the rest of it because it sounds like there's kind of no consensus about the changes as proposed. And so in the interest of time, we can keep rolling, I think. Does that sound good to the group?
Mhm.
Okay. Great. The next proposed change, just striking this this section here, the list, would be consistent with the other changes we've made. And then let's see. The next change is to this section on transportation connections. Striking the word improve from the title and calling it additional transportation connections, and then some minor changes to the paragraph.
Adam?
I would suggest I'll advocate again for my proposed reordering. I understand earlier a comment was made that, you know, the order doesn't really matter. They're all equally important. But when I read a document that the first, you know, what comes first is inferred by me to be the most important. And I remember we discussed this a year ago, same topic, different context. I mean, we know there's more islanders working from home. We're very close to seeing that arrival of the large employer, and these additional transportation connections. I mean, we keep seeing more and more delays. So I would suggest reordering them per my comment, because it's not here yet. And we don't know if there will be more delays. There may be more.
Victor?
Generally agree with Adam's comment. Also, aren't persons typically known as people?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Okay, so is there consensus to change the paragraph as proposed, as shown on the screen here?
Kate, did you have a comment?
Yeah, it just seems like I don't know if it's non sequitur is the right word. Leveraging the arrival of light rail will require some active steps to ensure this opportunity is maximized. And then it goes into negatives. So it's just weird. It just sounds really weird to me. Like, I think if you were trying to maximize an opportunity, you'd be looking at things like improving the welcoming nature of the corridor between light rail and the downtown core, whereas this just says, you know, we're worried about public safety. And I'm not saying that that doesn't belong in this paragraph, but I think that sentence is not, I think it switches the purpose of the beginning of the sentence.
Looks like Adam has his hand up.
I'll let Commissioner Boatsman speak first since I already spoke to this.
Carolyn?
I agree with Kate's comment there. I think that this is a rather glaring segue that just doesn't seem to fit. I would suggest deleting that.
Adam?
I would support keeping it. I'm not opposed to softening the change, but I mean, you know, if there is a public safety concern, perhaps 10% of potential people are willing to overlook that. And if we want to maximize the amount of people willing to use public transport, you know, if we address that public safety concern, perhaps we can capture a higher percentage of those. And I think that is inherently necessary to maximizing this potential opportunity.
Chris?
I think it's a great point, and I'd love to see a proposed alternative in September.
Well,
Yeah, I don't think there's consensus on this language, so that sentence is subject to reconsideration.
okay. There's consensus on the rest of the paragraph, though? I think I saw that. Okay. Very minor change on what's now line 11, adding planned arrival of light rail.
Adam, do you have a new comment, or is that?
Yes, just a clarification on the which Adam got the action to provide revised text for line for
Adam Zach.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there's consent. Is there consensus on the addition of the word planned here? Okay. And then there are some changes to the paragraph on more islanders working from home. See 3 thumbs. I don't see Victor, Kate, or Chris, but that's because my Zoom, I'm sure.
No, Chris was thumbs up.
I've
Okay,
got it. So I just have a question. We're striking that second sentence because it's redundant. Is that the thinking here?
I believe so, yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
Carolyn, do you have a question?
I have a comment. I'm going to send comments regarding adding something to this list, which is more housing priced in the middle range would be an opportunity. So I'll send that along to you.
All right, so I think we have consensus on more islanders working from home, that paragraph. And then I'm gonna assume consensus on removing this list, because we've done it elsewhere. Let's see, the next change is to the first paragraph of affordability in the region. Here on, what page are we on? Page 13.
Page 13. I do not see that. Where is that? Okay. Let's see. All right, page 12. I am.
I was not clear what was meant to a lesser degree, housing has the potential to slow economic growth. Chris, was that you or Adam's comment?
I don't remember if it was me, but looking at it, I do feel like we're a little schizophrenic that some places we seem to say we want our houses to be super expensive because people have a ton of money that have to buy them and then they're going to spend more in the town center. And here we seem to be saying that, housing gets too expensive and that could be a drag on the business. And, I think in both cases, we don't really know the answer to that. So, if we're going to take with what we've said so far, I would agree that maybe that should come out.
Adam?
I was the one who made the comment, and I think
Okay.
the way I read it was we're talking about business growth in the town center, but we talk about housing before commercial affordability. So I think listing commercial space affordability is, I think, more directly tied to a business's cost than the housing cost. So that was the rationale behind that comment.
Yeah, I just don't see where that comes from. So.
May I recognize, Chair? Or are you
Yes.
still going?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I couldn't.
So my concern about this statement is that we already have businesses complaining that they can't get employees. So I do think that affordability of housing, especially considering our analysis showed we're basically paying poverty wages to a lot of our workers. I think that's definitely relevant. I mean, and maybe that type of comment that I'm making just now is more appropriate in the sustainability of the workforce section. But I disagree with maybe commercial could go first on this list, but I certainly wouldn't say to a lesser degree housing if if people can't afford to live where they work, our employee crisis is just going to get worse, considering most of the jobs in our community are, or at least in home health care.
Carolyn?
I agree with switching the order of commercial and housing because the first paragraph does talk about commercial and the second paragraph talks about housing. But I would also not be comfortable with the phrase "and to a lesser degree housing," because the affordability of commercial space and housing are such different topics that I would disagree with trying to state which is more significant in this sentence.
Adam?
I respect Commissioner Boatsman's view there. I would be willing to support just the reordering. I'll still advocate on the lesser degree part because I think the data we've been shown say only 13% of people actually live on the island. And with this planned additional public transit options, that should reduce the impact of, maybe you find a cheaper apartment in downtown Bellevue. Then you have, at some time in the to be determined future, you have that rail link that can bring you to your job here. So it's 13% of the workforce, potentially lots of options for transit. So that's my rationale behind lesser. But I'm not gonna die on that hill.
All right, so is there a consensus then to amend this first sentence as shown on the screen here?
No.
No.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was the question again, please?
So is there consensus to amend the first sentence as shown on the screen here, striking to a lesser degree?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
See 3 thumbs. I can't see Mike. or
Yeah,
Vic.
I'm thumbs up.
Okay.
So just use your magic phrase.
Would anyone block consensus to amending this? Great. All right, so the next change is to the next sentence, or the next paragraph, just changing into on. I see thumbs on that one.
Adam, do you have a comment or is that?
It was on the table coming next. Sorry, I got
Okay.
too excited.
It is exciting.
Okay, so it looks like we're good within on. And now we're to table 5 if you wanna. If there's a comment.
No.
Carolyn,
Oh,
I am going to suggest adding to the threat list climate change. So I will send some text regarding that and a paragraph for your consideration.
okay.
great. All right. All right, Adam, we're to table 6 if you have a comment here.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. I liked Kate's idea earlier of getting the King County data side by side with our city data. So I'm assuming King County data would be available also through the census website. So I would propose we show these data side by side with those of King County.
Just in terms of the earning range here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming those are buckets from the American Community Survey. So yeah, I'm not trying to make it more granular.
Sure.
Kate,
Yeah, I did have a question about this table generally, though. I'm curious as to why it stops at 3,300, especially if we are going to bring the county data in. Because if we're talking, I feel like it should be consistent with, where's the table of our workers? Table 4. So table 4 has ranges of 10,000 to 15,000, 50,000 to 75,000. It goes up to 200,000 or more. So I think it would be useful to, even if you have to make them, condense those a little more, it just is weird to me that this stops at $40,000, because I know we have doctors and lawyers and stuff that practice on the island, and will certainly be a percentage.
So the reason these are divided that way is this data comes from the Census Bureau's On the Map tool that they provide that shows the inflow and outflow of workers. And so it was to be comparing apples to apples in table 5 rather than table 4. So they provide them in these buckets at this breakdown on the map. So that was the
They don't
only,
have the higher income brackets.
right. They just
Okay,
break it
thank
out
you.
by this
All right.
order, yeah.
Okay, so long as it's consistent, I'm happy.
Okay.
Thanks.
I will add in the King County, it'd be easy enough to pull King County from that on the map there. The next change is on page 14 here to the paragraph on displacement during redevelopment. Just some minor changes to the construction of the paragraph.
So, Adam, it was not clear to me why that sentence redevelopment is often driven by constrained supply of vacant developable land, blah, blah. Why that was stricken? Whose comment was that?
I believe that came from Chris Skell's comments. Correct me if I'm
Oh, boy. Yeah, I think I thought it was just, I didn't see that it had a necessarily point to the paragraph, but if people want it, let's keep it.
So if you go back to the original draft, what was the basis for that statement?
The basis for that statement is that it's just that I think that's a statement that is true. There isn't necessarily like a data point backing that up.
I think this gets to the point that many have made about affordable housing. I mean, there's a corollary between, saying some of our older housing, single family houses are little ramblers, are some of the only affordable housing for young families. When things get redeveloped, they're more expensive. New construction's always more expensive than what was there before. So I think it's legitimate to say that I think somewhere else we say that it's higher cost per square foot when you have a new development as opposed to an old one, but Victor can correct me on that if I'm mistaken.
Go ahead, Victor.
We'll say that first change reads funny. This causes most new commercial development on the island will occur through redevelopment.
Right, that's sort of clearly a typo of some sort.
Yeah, I think this was supposed to be struck and this should not be.
Yeah.
Is there a consensus to amend the paragraph as shown on the screen here? Or I see 2 thumbs.
My thumbs up.
Okay,
Chris is up.
and
Victor's up.
Commissioner
Adam?
Vega?
Not knowledgeable enough on this to offer an opinion or object.
Okay. So you wouldn't block consensus then? Okay. Great. Well, that concludes the introduction to the element.
Woo!
All right, we've been at this for about 2 hours now. Do we want to keep rolling?
Well, let's take a short break. And I think we keep rolling. Unless people don't want to.
Well, we had said that we were going to do a time check in 25 minutes. So we're going to take a break, and then by Adam's motion, we're going to take another check 15 minutes after coming back.
Well, then let's go 15 minutes.
Okay. Or, yeah, all right, well, we're at, policy 1.2 is the next proposed change. This is one of the, changes that was marked for deliberation and direction. The proposal here is to change the policy here, from essentially from this local business liaison position being a city council position, so one of the council members filling it, to being a local business liaison selected not from the city council, but that would report to the city council. This is a proposal that, the reason that I marked this out for deliberation and direction is that if the planning commission decides to go with this amendment, we would need to add some further detail at some point. Maybe it would be another policy, but kind of outlining who this local business liaison would be. And it's also worth noting that we don't have a current process for selecting such a position. And so we would need to kind of think about and have some kind of direction regarding that kind of on a bigger scale. Yeah. And this one was proposed by Chris, so he might be able to provide some more commentary.
Yeah, no, as I said in the notes, I mean, from my reading and my experience, there is this issue of regulatory capture. It's somebody who's joins another tribe and is still part of the first. I mean, I'm just very concerned about it creating a bias that's going to be a problem. And I guess in some ways, I'm not sure the city, I would love to see the business community select a liaison that they send to council meetings and keeps up to date. You know, I'm not sure that we would have to bless that person for them to do that. And as I say, there's a lot of other things we're doing to, you know, reach out more to the business community. And I'm just not sure we need to take this step. And I feel pretty strongly about it, but if no one else has the concerns I have, then so be it.
Okay.
I think Carolyn was before me.
Oh, okay. Carolyn?
I think we might be talking about two different things here. I don't know if the local business community will want to have one person to represent their points of view with the city council, and that would be a decision for them to make. But I do feel quite confident that the city council will want to have someone, one of their members, be a liaison to the business district. So I would be in favor of leaving it the way it was.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. I agree with Chris's proposed edit. I think it's problematic to have an elected official serve in that role. It would seem more appropriate to be a staff person or even a commissioner on one of the commissions, because the commissions are appointed by the full council as opposed to one council member. That at least removes like one degree of politicization away from the position. The other question I would have though would be, this economic element is new. We have commissions for all these activities. We don't have an economic development commission. I'm curious if it's kind of a non sequitur, I guess, but it's something like that coming, or where does the economic element business fully live in the planning commission? That doesn't seem, you know, I'm curious, like how would you, if not council, who? It seems like it'd be either staff or commissioner. And if it's staff, I don't think that's at our discretion.
Victor?
So I think what's being described here is actually the Chamber of Commerce, which we already have in place. Chamber of Commerce typically acts as a liaison between the business community and the rest of the community, including the city council. I am not supportive of having a business person or some sort of liaison. The city has a rich history of people who say they stand for the business community and then not representing the needs of the business community. So this is a die on the hill type of thing for me. Yeah, I think the city council could use a little bit of immersion into the needs of the business community. And so I'm supportive of it as written.
As originally written?
Yes.
Okay.
As one more clarification, I suppose, or a little bit more context, is I think the original vision for this liaison position was to be more like a conduit of information, to have a single, it says in here too, a single point of contact on the city council for the business community. It was intended to be kind of that point person on the council for that. They would be selected from among the existing city council members. If we were to go with the original policy, yeah, just for some additional context.
And just so that I'm clear, what Adam is describing is what I'm supporting, which is a city council member who acts as a business liaison to the business community. That's what it was originally written, right? Yeah.
Do we need to clarify then that they're a liaison to the Chamber of Commerce, or is it general?
No, they're a liaison to the business community. What my comment about the Chamber of Commerce is this idea of having a business person interacting with the council is already in place. It's called the Chamber of Commerce. So there's no need to recreate that.
Kristen, do you have another comment?
I do. I mean, I hadn't really thought through the fact that the business community would be disparate enough that a single liaison wouldn't work. And I think, Adam Zach raises good concerns about the complexity, so I guess I would suggest, instead of the change to 1.2, to strike 1.2 and, essentially give their point person as 1.3, dedicated one staff position to coordinating and implementing the economic development element. And, we haven't had that before. I think if at the end of some period of time that turns out not to be sufficient or not be working, then maybe look at other solutions. But I think doing both these things at once is maybe overkill. And as I say, I have serious concerns about a council member being designated a business liaison.
So Adam, I think there's, Carolyn.
Just add that it's very common for the city council to do this. The mayor and the deputy mayor, they appoint council members to be the point person with various organizations throughout King County, various emerging issues on Mercer Island. These things are sort of, sometimes they come and go. They might be ad hoc, or they might be a long-standing relationship that might change who's in the position for, as the years go by. But it's just it's a very common thing. So anyway, just want to add that.
Okay.
I agree with Chris's suggestion to strike 1.2. I think there's a big difference between a liaison between the business community, mainly because of our ethics rules. When you're talking about money and business and friends, and it's just ripe for corruption. And we have, they do have appointments, all sorts of things, but the last person that was appointed to Salmon Recovery Council didn't go to, I don't think, a single meeting. So, I don't think that appointing someone to be the liaison is necessarily effective. It certainly wasn't for the Salmon Recovery Council from Mercer Island. I think if a staff person is going to have a mandate in their work program, then they have to do the work, and they're meant to do it in an unbiased way that doesn't benefit them or their friends financially.
So we've been through this process, we've been agreeing to changes by consensus. With this, we've got a couple of different ideas. If the commission wants, we could hold off on doing this, making a decision until September. Or it might be useful to use like a motion regarding policy 1.2. Those might be some tools in our tool belt to address this.
Can I make a motion to ask staff to consult with our city attorney on ethical issues related to having a council member be a liaison to the business community?
You could make a motion. I would say, or make that motion. I would say that it might be more useful for us to pin down whether or not this is an idea that the commission's interested in, and then the city attorney will review this element before it moves forward in the process after the planning commission. So it might be more useful to pin down whether or not we want to do this, and then we can consult with BO as needed.
Chris, is that a new hand or old hand?
New hand, new hand.
Go
No,
ahead.
I would, maybe, it seems to me I think no one's supporting 1.2 as amended right now. So maybe the alternatives seem to be the original or to strike 1.2, and maybe we just queue those up for discussion in September, or for a decision in September when we're going to try to ram through this thing.
Yeah.
All right, looks like we have consensus. All right, moving to the next, we had a comment on policy 1.8, proposing some amendments here. This one, policy 1.8. We don't need additional direction necessarily, just it's a pretty substantial change to the wording of the policy.
Chris?
Yeah, I think for me, it just felt like it was too granular for this document. You know, if others disagree, fine. I don't have a big problem with the list. I just thought that it seemed like we're getting out ahead of ourselves in terms of, you know, doing the work of the people that are going to be doing the work under this plan.
Adam?
I don't support removing it, but I would support saying the city could focus, softening it a bit.
Yeah, I think that helps.
Yeah, or possibly they could focus on these and other things, not be restrictive. That's not the point.
Among the things the city should focus on are maybe something.
Yeah, something along those lines.
You could probably tighten it up and not make it big bullet points either. Just get the key phrases up in a list, including but not limited to.
Yeah.
Oh.
Non-exclusive, maybe.
Sure. Do you want to work on something? That'd be great.
Yeah, Adam, you get the drift of what we're saying. I think there's certainly consensus on that.
Yeah, I'll take a look on that
Okay.
next draft. And then the next proposed amendment is the addition of a new policy 1.9 to encourage the planting of trees by businesses in the city's business districts.
Carolyn,
I am all in favor of this, of course, but I think that these sorts of policies are better in goal number 4, which deals with environment. I will send along some language for goal number 4 that includes this concept, but is also written with more consistency to what it exactly says in the climate action plan. So I'll send that along to you.
Kate,
I just wanted to comment that as an urban forestry student at UW, Kathy Wolf presented to us, she's a social scientist, that businesses with trees in front of them actually make more money than businesses without trees in front of them. So I think it's perfectly suited here, not just for climate purposes.
okay, Adam,
I like it. I think Commissioner Boatsman raised a good point of perhaps a more appropriate location. And I think the word encourage is soft enough. We're not trying to create a city program or, lots of committing overhead. So I think, yeah, encourage is soft. So thumbs up.
Chris,
Nothing more. I think, I don't
Okay.
care where it is. I just want it in there. I mean, this broader point, I think goals 1, 4, 8, 9, 10, they're pretty, there's a lot of overlap.
right,
So, but yeah, if it goes in 4, great.
Victor,
So, I love trees. My question is, so in addition to having people run their business, we're now gonna also say that they should be planting trees. Am I understanding that correctly?
I don't think so. I think it's encourage, and it could be some
It-
DNO tax incentive. It could
And where,
be,
and where exactly are we gonna be planting the trees? Because like in front of our business, the city came and cut trees down. So I'm unclear as to where exactly these trees are gonna go.
I would envision this as something like a right-of-way program where there is a planting strip and there's appropriate room. So
Okay.
maybe
And this has what to do with economic development? This is doing what for businesses?
people spend more time in business districts where there's trees and shade. And, familiar with your block, there's not a lot of room for that. And I wouldn't want a poor little tree to be planted there. But I think where there's room and it's appropriate, it's a
But again,
city
I'll go-
program and they're
I'll go-
planting the trees and they're responsible for their maintenance because it's in the right of way.
Okay, so where is that room? I forget in front of our business. I'm thinking of the town center.
There's a lot of places where there are trees and they have the big
Exactly,
structural steel. Yeah.
exactly. There are trees there already.
I think
If
this is
there's
in the climate action
redevelopment,
plan,
just do
so
it there too.
Okay.
if
Carolyn,
it can't be done, it can't be done.
I think that
Let's,
the tree planting encouragement is more towards commercial property owners than businesses, because a lot of businesses lease space in buildings. So in the draft of some comments that I'm putting together, I've focused more on property owners than businesses.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, if we could add businesses and rights of way, I think it would make it easier to understand.
Sorry, Kate, I didn't understand that. Are you proposing a change to what's on the screen here?
Yeah, I think businesses is not necessarily the correct phrase there. Yeah, I'm agreeing with what Carolyn and Victor both said. It would be more commercial property owners and the city and rights of way in the commercial areas.
So something like this.
Encourage the planting of trees by commercial property owners. And the city in commercial areas. Something like that.
Something like that.
You might take out right of way because it's not just. But it's just saying it's not the business, the business owner
Sure.
isn't carrying the burden of doing it is the point.
Was I recognized?
Yes, your hands
Oh,
up.
okay, sorry. I just heard a boop. I'm kind of concerned now. We're getting, I think, a little too detailed here, and a comment by Commissioner Goals about, tax credits or something. Why don't we just leave it at encourage the planting of trees in commercial areas and leave it at that? By who? Let's not worry about that, because I think if we start talking, property owners, then people may start to jump to, property tax credit, and that's a road I don't think I would not want to go down, because that may change my opinion on this.
Carolyn?
There's very specific policy language regarding this matter in the climate action plan. So I think whatever we put in here should really be reiterating what we read in there.
So is there consensus to keep the policy but make it consistent with the climate action plan? And I can pull that for the next draft.
I think we also wanted to strike by businesses.
Yeah. I think the point is we want to encourage the planting of trees in commercial areas consistent with the climate action plan.
Okay,
So I'm at 1% power. So could we take our break, and I'm going to try to switch over to my iPad.
well, it's 9:45 now.
So the question is, do we take a break and push on for a while, or do we call it quits and reconvene?
I would say call it quits. I think it's going to take too long to finish, really.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
Fifth. Okay. Well, we've covered a fair amount of ground and gotten through a lot of the tougher stuff, so that's good. Okay. So Adam's Zach, that is.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
And you've been left with a few things to do before next time. I assume there's no deputy director report.
No, I think just a reminder that we have August off and we'll be coming back in September.
Okay. Are there any planned absences for September or thereafter?
Maybe December. I don't know what our date in December is though.
Yeah, that's a long ways away.
Okay. I didn't know how much past September you were going with that question.
Well, I didn't intend to go to December, but thank you. Okay, anything else? Chris, is that a hand up or not?
No, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, there being no other business to come before the planning commission, the time is now 9:46 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. As a reminder to commissioners, please stay online until staff has terminated the broadcast. Good evening and thank you all for joining us.